Hey folks, so I'm doing another 10 to 60 Windwalker Monk run. I've done a bunch of these over the last year. I have 2 world records still. Both of them are with Windwalker. One is Alliance, one is Horde. And in this video, I'm not going to be doing another world record attempt. We're just going to be doing a testing run. So a bit more chill, a bit more laid back. You can see here I'm on the PTR. This is on a server called FireAck, which is not a real server. It's on the 10.1.5 PTR. And that is one of the 2 things that I'm going to be testing in this run. The other one is we're just doing the 50% XP buff, so it doesn't really change much. A lot of people have wanted to see it. I will give you a heads up right now. It's not really going to change a whole lot. It just makes it 50% faster. There's a little bit of intricacy in terms of how you do the routing, which parts you cut out, but it's really not that complicated. I'm keeping it on here because a lot of people have asked me, are you doing runs with the 50% buff? So this is one of them, and I'll be doing a few more over the next week. And on that note, this coming Saturday, July 1st, I believe, at 11 a.m. Eastern Server Time, I'm going to be streaming here on YouTube. I only stream on YouTube, so a lot of times when I say I'm streaming, people are like, oh, what's your Twitch? I don't have a Twitch account. All streams are here on YouTube, and it'll be another speedrun. So I'm going to be doing this 10 to 60 run, obviously, you're watching it. Then later in the week, probably on a Friday, I'm going to do a Shadow Priest 10 to 60 run, because that was something that won a poll basically a few months ago, and I was going to do the run at that point, but then they announced that Shadow Priest was getting a rework in 10.1, so I was like, all right, I'll wait to do this one. I'll do it when the rework goes out. And then I decided to keep waiting because they announced that there was leveling changes for 10.1.5, which I think I mentioned that, that's one of the reasons we're doing this. If you haven't heard, I already put out a video on it, but the TLDR is that there's changes to routing training. Now you don't need to buy routing training, it's learned automatically. So that changes the routing a little bit. It's not super significant, but it will be kind of nice. It devalues stuff like Volpera Racial, which is why I'm going to be playing a Nightborn. Nightborn is not like the new meta, for the record. I'm not playing this because it's really fast. I just figured, well, I've done so many runs as Volpera or Dark Iron Dwarf, I'm going to try a different race. Nightborn doesn't really get seen a lot. It's not a speedrunning race, and this is just a testing practice run, so why not? We'll try some other allied races. But that's the main thing we're going to be testing, the routing changes. There are some other ones. Once again, I already have a video on that. It is going to be linked in the description for anyone who hasn't seen it and wants to see what the changes are going to be. But I think that pretty much covers it. So we have the stream on Saturday, July 1st. I've explained the concept of the run. I think we can jump right in, and I can explain a bit more about the setup as we get started. See, this is the thing with these runs. There's always something that I'm forgetting, but I think I can, as I load in, get this set up, and I don't need to start the timer until I actually interact with the game. Any second now. This is a long load screen. This is a very long load screen. Alright. Can increase the size. So skip the cutscene, close the Lua error, and the moment I move or interact with any UI element, I'm not really counting a Lua error, right? I think we can go ahead and start the timer. All right, so just pick up the Thalersera quest, and now I'm heading to, I think I can mount up here to Orgrimmar. I think it's already been well established that out of the allied race starting positions, High Mountain Tauren definitely has the best out of all of them. Let's see, I don't really need to set my Hearthstone here. I'm gonna select a timeline. Oh, they changed up the order. Okay. Wait, oh, this is weird. Battle for Azeroth. Oh, huh. Okay, I'm wasting time here, but that's actually a brand new change from a very recent PTR build, because that was not there the last time I checked. I'm going to, fix my UI. I have a lot of stuff already set up. Maybe it's because I created a test character and already did some UI stuff. As usual, going to be grabbing things. Oh, what? I don't know what the hell just happened there. Some pop-up closed my bags, which kind of slowed me down a little bit. Technically, I can right-click the bags to auto-equip them, but for some of them, I don't want to do that. And then I just want to loot the rest of everything else. And then yeah, we can get going. Gonna gun shoes, and then while I'm in the gun shoes, as usual, I will equip stuff. So, in case you are... I cannot dual wield? What? That's new? I don't remember not being able to dual wield unless it automatically... I don't have my walk run keybind set up. Do I need to, like, switch to Windwalker to dual wield? Can Brewmaster not dual wield? No, Brewmaster can... Yeah, what? That is... Is that new? I feel like I've never been in a position like that where I just can't equip something like that before. Not a huge deal. Let me just... That's set up so I can actually mount. You also notice there's, like, new spell effects. And yeah, in case it isn't obvious, I don't know if I already said this, trying to, like, process everything. I'm going to be focusing a little bit on the setup, because like I said, it's not a... We're not doing, like, a world record speedrun, but the main thing that I want to do with this, in addition to testing the writing changes, as I said before, is I want to see how much faster the 50% buff is. Like, how good of a time can I get using that buff? Because that's what a lot of people want to know, and that's the main thing that I want to test. You can see here it is active. Winds of Sanctuary, experience gain, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to be at least trying my best. And as always, since we're doing Silver Pine first, basically, I get to Silver Pine, I get started on the... you can also get a 10% buff from the Midsummer Pole. I'm not using that, though, because if you're new to the speedruns, I don't like to use holiday buffs. So I make rare exceptions for limited time buffs, like the 50% thing, when it's, like, requested by a lot of viewers, right? Because this is, like, it's one and done. After this event, you won't be able to benefit from it again, so people want to see me do a few runs with the buff before it's gone, sure. But generally speaking, I actually prefer to do runs with no limited time buffs, with the exception of Darkmoon Faire. Now, some, like, newer viewers a lot of times will not fully understand why I'm doing a run with Darkmoon Faire buff, but not the other ones, and my reasoning is because Darkmoon Faire, my map is... Why can't I move my map? I guess... With... What? Yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, the, Can I... If I disable snap to elements, can I drag it past? Yeah, I don't know what's going on. My, Yeah, save and exit. My map is, like, lower than I want it to be, and I guess I must not have something set up from retail. PTR is always a little bit funky with stuff like this. The UI is never exactly how you want it, because it takes a while to get set up, and I'm not going to sit here for 2 hours trying to make everything absolutely perfect just for, like, one PTR testing run. But yeah, the reason I think Darkmoon Faire buff is okay is because Darkmoon Faire, first week of every single month, it's active, right? So you can reliably get... Oh, and before I forget, I also need to drink this 10% experience potion. Is there anything else that I need? Interface. I have auto loot. I don't have nameplates turned on. Action bars, controls. Okay, I think we got most things. Nameplates are a little bit different. There's a lot of, like, little UI changes present in the 10.1.5 PTR. Okay, now I can actually get this stuff set up, so let me take a moment to do this. But yeah, Darkmoon Faire I generally feel is fine compared to the other holidays, because Darkmoon Faire is active once a week, every single month. The way I see it is, if you want to level alt characters, you have 1 week per month where you get a 10% faster leveling experience. In fact, it generally ends up being a little bit faster than 10% because the quest items are also a pretty nice bonus. Okay, I go Windwalker. So, if you're, like, really, that's, like, a pretty high uptime, right? What I just do is I don't do leveling runs outside of Darkmoon Faire, unless it's like this, right, where Obviously, Darkmoon Faire isn't active right now, and I'm still doing a leveling run. And that's just because, why not? I'm mostly testing the 50% buff, and I'm testing the 10.1.5 stuff, so it's not a huge concern if I don't have 10% bonus experience. What I might do, though, and I'm still debating this, I guess if you want to see this, what I'm about to describe, let me know. I might do a run this week, or this next week, I mean, during Darkmoon Faire. So this buff, as I mentioned before, ends the 11th. You can see here, this is when it ends. But there is 1 week here where we have Darkmoon Faire, we have the 50% XP buff all in the same week, and if I do any, super serious speedruns, I might do it here. And the only reason I'm debating it, because a few people have asked me, and I have said before, I'm actually not doing that. The thing that made me change my mind is I've discovered, I don't want to say new tech, because it's not new tech. It's how do I describe it? New speedrun meta stuff. Just in terms of, I think I've discovered, I obviously don't want to spoil it, right? But I think I've figured out something that basically will give me a minor time save compared to what I'm doing now, or what I did in my previous speedruns of, Windwalker Monk and stuff. And let me put Cartel Master's Gear Glider just so I have a... And now I can equip that. Dollar on Hearthstone is a toy now. That's another change, actually. It's a bit of an interesting one. I also want Grand Expedition Yak for vendoring. Put that on Control 7. I don't have none of Auto Vendor turned on. Where is it? Automation. I have Sell Junk automatically. Oh, it's because of the new, yeah. Sell Junk automatically, no. Yeah, so it's doing it because of transmog, right? Where I don't have certain appearances, and it's just not vendoring it because it doesn't want me to lose the transmog appearance. Obviously, I don't care, right? It's a PTR. I don't care if I don't have appearances collected, but that's actually going to be a little bit annoying, because that means it'll sometimes just not auto vendor stuff. And these are first world problems, right? And technically, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. If I eat a 30-second time loss to minor shenanigans, the nice thing about it still being a testing run is I don't need to care a lot. But I at least kind of want to give it a good go of it. I want to make sure that we're actually putting in good effort into making this an efficient run. So, I'm trying to get it all set up. And if I do end up doing another really well put together speed run, world record attempt kind of, I want to have practice, right? I want to make sure I've already done this recently, because one of the hardest things about doing another one of those really well put together speedrun things is why is my auto loot not working? Okay, this is starting to annoy me a little bit. I know I'm all over the place. I get it. I need to eat this, get the food buff. Right. Drums of Ferocity, put this on Control 3. What I was saying before is I like to get the practice, just so I'm not jumping right into it, having been rusty and not done a bunch of speedrun attempts in a little while. I can also put this here, put Swiftness Potion here. All right, and gun shoes need to be there. Lighter there, there. And I can do the other stuff later. It's not a huge concern. I should also turn off error speech. The I do not have a target. Personally, it's one of those things where, yeah, here we go. Error speech. There we go. I've never really cared much about error speech, but if there's one thing I've learned from YouTube comments, it's that viewers fucking hate the I do not have a target. I cannot cast that yet. Shit like that. I've gotten probably more complaint comments than anything over the years about like, oh my god, why does this guy play with error speech on? Like, how do you stand listening to that? And it's like, I don't know. Like, I tune out a lot of stuff. I've also heard people complain about GTFO, which, you know, I don't have GTFO on the PTR right now, but I do use it on live servers. And I don't know, like, I've said it before, but I have ADD. So to me, like, annoying repetitive noises sometimes actually kind of help me focus. So I kind of like the I don't have a target yet or whatever, because sometimes, even though I'm not like consciously listening, if I hear the error speech, it just lets me know that I'm not in range. So it has like some practical uses as well. Where's my provoke? Provoke. I also don't have Rising Sun Kick on my bars. Ah, that's not good. Yeah, okay, I think everything else is there, though. Yeah. It did feel like I was missing a button. But yeah, like, just about a month ago at this point, I distinctly remember thinking to myself, like, oh, this is why I use error speech. I was doing pulls of Mythic Magrax with my guild, and on pull, I was trying to, like, kind of kite the boss and stay within range, like, just in range so he keeps chasing me to the edge of the platform. And at one point, I was like kind of focused on the mechanics, right? So I was trying to kite the boss and focus on the other mechanics while doing my DPS rotation, and like I could kind of hear that was weird. I could kind of hear the game going, I'm out of range or something like that, and it like subconsciously told me to like move in closer, just take a few steps, because like I'm not looking, I'm just doing my rotation kind of by muscle memory and not like consciously, you know, staring at my buttons like, is it actually going off? So when I heard like the error notice, I'm like, oh shit, I need to get like a little bit closer. And that allowed me to like actually direct more of my, I guess, for lack of a better word, like conscious attention towards the mechanics and stuff like that. And, you know, even though I was momentarily out of range, the error speech kind of told me, oh, you need to get a little bit closer. Whereas, like, that's the kind of thing where, you know, pixel perfect positioning, I may not have noticed. But I was able to make, like, that small adjustment on the fly because of that. So, I don't know, it's like everybody has their own preferences. Like, obviously, another big thing is a lot of people criticize my UI, right? And I don't know, it works for me, it always has. I'd like to think that my UI hasn't really held me back at all. You know, I still perform perfectly well in every form of content that I've ever tried to do, despite the fact that I have a UI that some people consider suboptimal, right? Like, so, hey, it's just to each their own, right? Like, everybody has their own personal preferences and stuff. But yeah, I think I got all the other stuff set up. Not having to manage gear sets is so nice. Not having that to worry about. That's like one of the things I absolutely hate about doing speedruns. But it is, at the end of the day, if you really want to shave off the like last bits of time, it does actually help. I think yeah, I've gotten all the important stuff on my bars for now. I've equipped all my heirlooms. This is all stuff that I won't need till later. So there's like enough RP or flight paths and stuff that later on I can do. But once I'm like extremely confident that, you know, everything's set up properly, then I can take it back to the Dawning Isles. Alright, so this is level 30. Alright, these are the potions. So I can't see my UI. But yeah, I got this set up, the XP pot set up. Alright, think we're good. I would say these are all the consumables that you really need. This is honestly overkill, right? Like, for casual leveling, because I've gotten a lot of comments on this, and I'll probably put out an updated consumable guide, because I have, like, a speed leveling consumable guide that's still on my channel, but as of right now, it is the oldest, actually, like, listed video on my channel. So I have a few slightly older unlisted videos, but I've still kept up my 2020 like speedrunning consumables and WoW, and that was as of Shadowlands, but it is still pretty much accurate. The only thing it doesn't have is I don't think it has the Shadowlands consumables for like higher levels, but that only is 50 to 60, so honestly, you don't even need that. 50 to 60 is like the easiest part of the leveling process. in a kind of weird twist of fate, right? The very end of it is the easiest part, just because of the way that the experience scales. They should probably change that at some point, but I don't think they will. I also don't think it's a really big concern. Doesn't bother me, and it certainly doesn't make things worse for other players, but it is just kind of one of those like unintuitive things. Like when my sister was playing this and I was trying to get her into it, and I had to explain that the experience actually is like it's slow at the start and then it speeds up as you get to the end. It's kind of like a weird leveling curve. Most games are actually the opposite. It's like it starts off really fast and then it slows down later on, which generally speaking, I would say makes it easier for players because in terms of like gameplay, the later levels tend to be the hardest because it's when stuff like heirlooms won't carry you as much. Like at low levels, as you can see, I'm just one-shotting everything. It's super duper easy. But if you get to higher levels, well, then you actually need to put in a little bit of effort to your rotation. So players spending less time there makes the game a little bit easier, or the leveling process at least. Which, like I said, no complaints here, but I can understand why people may not love that. Now we got the cutscene where I can't actually do any setup because it's just an unskippable thing. Whew. All right. I'm finally glad to be actually like in this run and having it going. I've had many I almost said technical difficulties, but this is actually one of the few cases where like the only thing that had technical difficulties was my brain for like the past 48 hours. I've been trying to get this run set up for such a long time, and I initially planned on doing this. I initially planned on doing the Shadow Priest run first, and then doing this run, and then doing the streams like this past weekend. That wasn't due to any error of my own, just because I've been working a lot on classic WoW guides, so they're finished now, or at least the ones that I have initially had planned. I had a Trial of the Champion guide that I put out, which is doing reasonably well. You know, it's a dungeon guide, right? I've said before, the only reason I do dungeon guides is because I enjoy making them. Dungeon guides, for the amount of effort that is required to make a good dungeon guide, the performance is terrible. Like, I'll get like 10, 20,000 views on most of them, which seems good, right? 10, 20,000 views, it's not as much as some of my biggest videos, but it's nothing to scoff at. But you know, for instance, my videos on to take some recent examples, like the overpowered 411 trinkets you've never heard of, or who's still using the Onyx Amulet. Like, it takes time to make those videos, but a lot of the effort is in like research and stuff. And the nice thing about research like that, where I'm like looking through logs or like just kind of casually testing something while recording, is I can usually watch Netflix on a second monitor. So I spent maybe, I don't know, like for the Onyx Amulet one, that video was like mostly research, right? It was just looking through logs, you know, comparing data and stuff like that, talking to a few of my talking to a few of my theory crafter friends about the Onyx Amulet and stuff like that. And it ended up getting nerfed, but you know, it was relevant when I made it. And honestly, considering I made the Onyx Amulet video, Blizzard posted that they were nerfing the Onyx Amulet. Then, like, 1 week later, I made the video on the 411 trinkets, and within, like, 4 days, Blizzard once again nerfed those 411 trinkets. I kind of feel like someone watched both of those videos, because considering the timing on that, like, if it was just one, right, like, I think we were all expecting them to nerf the Onyx Amulet. So, the fact that it came very close after my video, the official announcement, I was like, there's a chance, right? But when, like, days later, I made a separate video about, like, really overpowered low-level gear, and then that thing within days got nerfed, and mind you, I mean, the video was called The 411 Trinkets That You've Never Heard Of. A lot of people genuinely had never heard of those, so really there was, like, nobody bringing attention to it, and then I make a video and it gets nerfed, like, immediately, just like the Onyx Amulet one. I don't know, but I'm just saying, I think somebody at Blizzard watched those videos, which, you know, is kind of cool. Obviously, there's a good chance that they watched it anyways, right? Like, I'm pretty sure at least, like, a handful of developers are aware of, like, some of the stuff that I've made. But I do think that is, like, enough where I feel pretty reasonably confident that, yes, they did watch it, and I think that, you know, it's cool, right? I should also pick my talents, at least Fists of Fury. Then Power Strikes, and take that. Mostly just want to get Fist of Fury, so I actually have, like, part of my core leveling rotation. I'll wait until, like, RP later on to pick up the other talents, because a lot of them, at this point, aren't going to be super important. I can do that, because I want to tag you. What was I saying? Oh yeah, dungeon guides and stuff, right? Yeah, so all of that to say, all the reason I'm talking about these videos in the first place is I spent maybe 12 hours, maybe is an overestimate. Let's say 8 hours of research, script writing, video recording and stuff like that, to get the stuff needed for the Onyx Amulet video. And then let's say editing the video together took another 2 hours or so. It was a 5-minute video, and it was relatively simple. So a lot of times I was I had tooltips on screen and stuff like that, and it takes time to edit the tooltips in there, throw all the stuff together, make it look readable and whatnot, and do the audio editing and stuff like that. That takes some time, right? But for a short 5-minute video where, to be honest, the main content is the script itself, it's the information. People aren't watching that and having their eyes glued to the screen of let me read every inch of this tooltip, right? Because if it's on the screen, somebody can just pause and read the words on there, or they can just Google it and search on Wowhead the exact trinket if they want more information. The main point of those videos is the information. It's me reading the script within the video, and then the person listening to it and gathering information from that. All that to say, the editing of the video itself doesn't require a ton. I'm not going to lie and say I put as much effort into editing those videos as I do some of the other ones, because the reality is I don't need to. You can do basic edits and still have those videos be completely serviceable, because all that matters is it delivering the information? Yes. Okay, so I don't need to go super fancy with the editing or stuff like that, or make a ton of cuts to show little things. No, you can just do one basic continuing bit of footage with stuff overlaid on top of it, right? So making that video, let's say it took 12 hours of effort, which might even be an overstatement. And that video currently has 50,000 views, which is pretty good. So that's for the amount of time I spent on it, let's say 12 hours, 50,000 views, that's a good return on my effort. By comparison, right, the Trial of the Champion guide, I spent 3 days working on. It was a lot. And actually, I don't even really think that does it justice, because I spent a ton of time basically scripting and researching. That takes time too, right? Because, and this is why a lot of people, especially for Classic, right, I get a lot of snarky comments on ooh, a 15-minute guide for a dungeon that is super duper easy, ho ho ho. Yeah, sure, but for starters, one of the main reasons why guides are now even more important for Classic dungeons is now there's hard modes where a lot of mechanics that you didn't even know existed running the dungeon the first time are actually now pretty relevant, because in the hard mode version of the dungeon, you actually need to deal with it. And I've seen that happen a lot, where I've joined a dungeon group and I've been hey, we actually need to worry about this. And people are it's Classic, it's easy. And then they wipe because they didn't listen to me. And I'm yeah, the boss actually has mechanics. When you're doing it on a hard mode and it has a plus 100% health modifier, you can't just ignore everything and just DPS through it. So that actually kind of makes my guides more important, because people actually need to somewhat know what's going on, even if it's easy. But also, I kind of like to know what's happening, because there's a bunch of little things that you don't really think about with running dungeons like that. That I really do think can make it easier. You see, for instance, a good example of the recent dungeon, Trial of the Champion. The hardest boss in there by far is Argent Confessor Palatris. And the thing about Argent Confessor Palatris is it's one of those bosses where on regular heroic, by the time people got to TOC back in the day, right? I don't ever remember Palatris being a difficult boss when I did at current content. I was also really young, so it's possible it was, and I'm just misremembering. But I also just really don't think it was, because it just didn't have enough health to actually be difficult. But now on like the Heroic Plus version of the dungeon, or Heroic Plus Plus, right? That boss actually has enough health that it's actually really fucking hard just because of the way that it's tuned. It's kind of like there's this one phase where the boss just kind of grinds you out. It's she summons a mob called like a Memory of the Past, and it could take the form of like Hogger or Illidan or something like that. And she has like, normally she has dots that she'll put on players, and she also spam casts Holy Smite onto random people, which means you actually need a good healer. And the reality of classic dungeons is like a lot of them you can be really bad and still scrape by. You know, hey, it's just a fact. And I've been in a lot of dungeons with really all right. We get a chest. I always like checking this little side hallway just because I feel like a genius when there's actually a chest there. But anyways, like I tank in Classic, by the way. Like anyone who's watched my channel for a while probably already knows that I tank in like basically everything. But I also tank in Classic. I play a Protection Paladin. I'm currently working on my Blood DK though. Might make like videos or stream the catch-up process of my Blood DK because that could be fun. But anyways, mostly playing Prop Pally. I'm, for reference, for people who give a shit about that, I'm at 5.2k gear score at the moment. So like decently geared. I've done all of like the hard modes and heroics and stuff like that. But yeah, so like I can basically carry any even kind of shitty healer through dungeons just because with I need to click off my food buff to get it to refresh, right? Because even if they're not doing a lot of times I just have tools that let me kind of handle it. And most damage in classic dungeons is tank damage. You don't really have a lot of bosses that do group-wide damage or that do random damage to different players. It's just kind of something that didn't really exist in a lot of dungeons back then. So when you have a boss that already has a lot of things going on, like she'll apply dots to people, she'll heal herself, or she'll apply a hot to herself, which is important, and then she's doing damage to random players that isn't the tank, and it also can't be mitigated by armor because it's magic damage. A lot of healers just panic, and they're having to heal more than one person. And, there are good healers who can handle that, don't get me wrong. But in a lot of pugs, you just see when a healer has no fucking clue how to handle it, and people are just rotting out left and right. It's actually a nightmare. It's like they have to do like a retail level boss in a classic dungeon. Oh no. But the point is, it's important to understand that. And for people who are maybe struggling with that, some little tips such as, hey, you can have the mage spell steal the hot that the boss puts on herself, which does two things. One, if you have a mage or you have somebody with a purge, or specifically if you have a mage, the mage gets the hot, right? So then they stay alive through the incoming damage, which makes the healer's life easier. But if you have a purge to remove the hot off her, that means you don't need to use kicks to remove the hot. And it also means that you can then use those kicks to stop her random casts, which once again makes the healer's life easier. So it's little things like that that can help out the healer. Or the fact that Palatrice is immune to damage when she's when she's doing like her intermission phase, but she also reflects 20% of the damage that you do to her. So you don't just want to not hit her, you also want to be far away from her so that if you're accidentally splashing damage onto her, it's not like destroying you and forcing your healer to keep up. So little things like that, right? Like, it doesn't really matter if you're just zugzagging the dungeon, but when you're doing it with a massive additional health modifier where it actually is decently hard for undergeared groups, guides like the ones that I make, where I go into every little detail and give actual strategies on like, okay, how do you deal with every mechanic, instead of like, I've looked at some other classic guides that people make, and I shit you not, some guides that people make are literally like half going over the loot, which you can just fucking open up Atlas loot, right? Like, I just have Atlas loot on my minimap in Classic, and if I want to see the loot, I just press that button. Why the fuck do I need a video guide to tell me what the boss drops? Like, that's not the point of a guide. But they'll be like, oh yeah, this boss, it hits the tank, and it casts this spell, which is like an AoE on the group, and then it summons some ads. And once the boss is dead, here's all the sick loot that it'll drop. And how is that helpful to anyone? Like, what are people gaining by watching that video? Like, I can understand the people who say, oh, making an in-depth guide for Classic maybe isn't or watching an in-depth guide for Classic dungeons isn't helpful for them. They can figure it out. Okay, sure. But at least I think it's understandable how what I'm going for, which is making like actually detailed dungeon guides for these things, will be helpful for some people. And best, or like at the absolute minimum, something that I have received a few comments from is people saying that, even if it isn't, super complicated, if they're tanking or healing dungeons, the fact that they know everything going in and know like what's easy and what's hard, it basically eliminates some of their anxiety. So they're already like mentally prepared, like, okay, this is what this boss does. So I'm not like petrified with fear tanking this for the first time. Because a lot of people have like serious tank or healing anxiety. I think Leatrix Plus doesn't auto-skip the cutscenes, right? Okay. Sometimes I've died to that, which, maybe I should have picked up talents beforehand. So that's another reason to make the guides. It makes people feel more comfortable with running the content. So, like, yeah, that's one thing. But the people who make those guides that, like, literally provide zero information, like, who is this serving, right? Because the people who actually want to learn the dungeon, they're getting nothing out of this. The people who don't care about Classic anyway, they're not going to watch guides no matter what. So it's a pointless video to make. I don't know. It annoys me. It's like, sure, I could just not make a Classic guide, or I could try to do something detailed like that. All of that to say, this is a tangent, right? But I spent a ton of time researching every little thing, going into comments from like the Wrath of the Lich King days to see if there were any additional strategy tips, which I did find a few, right? Like specifically the tip about using Mage Spellsteal to deal with the healing things so that you can save kicks for the other damaging spells. That's not something that, I mean, it makes sense when you hear it, right? But it isn't something that I consciously thought of, and I probably wouldn't have included it in the script had I not seen Wowhead comments mentioning that. And then I'm like, oh shit, that's actually a good idea. If people have a mage in their group or have a purge, that can definitely help make the fight a bit easier. And there's other things, right? Like the mob that she summons does an AoE fear. So since that boss is so extremely difficult, and part of it is because of the AoE fear and how it interacts with the brand new like Mythic Plus affixes in Classic, having a Tremor Totem down for every single one of those AoE fears makes that mechanic just a non-issue. So things like that of like, oh, make sure to bring a shaman so that they can drop Tremor Totem to negate the hardest part of that entire dungeon. That's the kind of stuff that, you want to see from a guide. And that's the type of thing that I need to like look into every mechanic and see like, okay, how do you deal with this? What's a good strategy to make this easier for people? Because that's the point of a guide, right? And then, of course, not only that, but I'm not just showing a playthrough of the dungeon, right? Like another thing that I hate when guides do is, especially when it's about specific information. So like I said before, with my video on the Onyx Amulet, a lot of times I would have stuff playing in the background. Like I think I put footage of my Mythic Magmarax kill while I was discussing the data and showing it on the screen, overlaid on top of my Mythic Magmarax footage. But when it's something like a dungeon, where you're watching it to get specific information, like you're watching it to learn about how to do a specific mechanic, like the viewer needs to see that mechanic in action. They need to see like, okay, how does this actually work? Right? Like you don't just want to hear about it. At that point, you could be watching you can be reading a written guide. The entire point of a video guide is to give visual examples, and that requires a lot of editing, because that means that I need to get like clear, concise footage of, or clear, I don't know a good word for it. Like non-obstructed footage is kind of what I'm looking for there. That very obviously demonstrates how the mechanic works and how you should deal with it. And then I need to put that in there the moment I'm discussing that particular ability. So something that immediately comes to mind is, whatchamacallit, Hammer of the Righteous, an ability on Eadric the Pure, another boss in Trial of the Crusader. Is that boss really difficult? No, it's honestly pretty easy. And I did a few testing runs on Classic with some people in my guild who helped me out, and I already got footage of that boss. However, when we were killing Eadric the Pure, I never got targeted by Hammer of the Righteous, and that has an interaction where... why is my Tiger's Lust... Oh, that was weird. Yeah, so when you get hit by Hammer of the Righteous, if you get dispelled before it goes off, then you catch the hammer and you get an extra action button that lets you chuck it back at the boss. So I want to make sure that when I'm discussing that part of the mechanic, when I'm saying if you get dispelled before Hammer of the Righteous connects with you, you're able to get an extra action button that lets you throw it back at him for extra damage. I don't want to just have generic footage of the boss playing in the background. I want to have specifically a clip of me catching the hammer and throwing it back at Eadric the Pure. So if somebody's listening to me saying that and watching the video, they can see, oh, that's what it looks like. You catch the hammer, your bar changes a little on specifically your one ability. You get a little hammer, you press that button, it does damage, right? And now they know everything that they need to do that mechanic. It's not a hard mechanic. Sure, you could get just a basic explanation, but it still does a good job of explaining it. And I think it goes the extra mile, right? It's not just the lazy way of saying, yeah, just do X, Y, Z. It's like, here's how it works and here's what it looks like when this happens, which actually requires a lot of effort getting all of that little bit of extra footage. Like, I have to go into the dungeon, I have to solo it. Like, I must have done Trial of the Champion like 10 different times on the PTR, just running through it over and over and over and letting specific abilities go off until I get like the perfect clip of, oh yeah, this is exactly a perfect demonstration of what it looks like when this ability goes off. And then boom, I have the footage for the video. And the reason, once again, that I'm explaining all of this is to hammer home how much time goes into making these dungeon guides relative to a video like the Onyx Amulet, which requires just a decent amount of research and then a small amount of editing. Dungeon guides require so much more effort to research, write, and put together. It's also longer, right? It's a 15-minute video. Naturally, a 15-minute video is going to take much more time to write, much more time to record, much more time to edit than another type of video, like that's 5 minutes long. And yeah, it's gotten 15,000 views, but that is basically 3 days of effort for 15,000 views. And in the other case of the Onyx Amulet one, it's 12 hours of effort for 50,000 views. And that's why it can sometimes be difficult to justify making stuff like this. Like, it's very easy to say like, oh, I don't really know why. I'm partially going on this tangent because it's just on my mind, right? But I'm also partially going on this tangent because I get a lot of comments when I say that I can't justify making a particular video. And a few people will be like, oh, well, if you made it, I'd watch it, or something like that. And it's like, well, I appreciate the sentiment, and I know that, even my videos that don't perform super well, there's going to be an audience, right? There are going to be people who will watch that. At a certain point, if something is going to require days and days and days of effort from me, I either A, need to be really motivated, or B, it needs to perform well. And like I said before, the dungeon guides are squarely in the category of I just enjoy making them. The moment I run out of motivation to keep making dungeon guides is the day that I no longer make dungeon guides, because it is just difficult. Also, what is wrong with my bars here? Something funky is happening here. I don't know why. I don't even know where I edit this, but in case you can't tell, I'm sure you've probably noticed by now, the enemy bars above their head isn't actually changing based on their health, and neither is like my little resource display. So when I get into combat, like you have in the middle of my screen my energy and my health, and my energy is updating, my chi is updating, but my health is not, which probably won't matter a lot, but one of the nice things about having nameplates and stuff set up like that is I kind of rely on it on more difficult stuff. Obviously, this isn't necessarily the hardest thing ever combat-wise. But when I get to some of the higher levels where I am actually like fighting Yetimus, which is a difficult fight, and I actually need to know exactly what his health is at so I can plan around my Touch of Death, or know where my health is at so I can say, oh, do I need to like use a heal or something like that? I will have to look up here at the top left of my screen for that information, which I don't like to have to do, which is why I have the personal resource display in the middle of my screen, which is very nice and handy. But that is not really working, which is not great. It's not like the end of the world. It's not the type of thing that I need to like stop the entire speedrun to do. Like, minor side tangent, but speaking of having to stop the entire speedrun, I actually started this yesterday, and right after I started it, I realized I did not have Leatrix Plus installed. Because there's like 50 million different versions of the PTR now. There's the way it's labeled on CurseForge is it's Retail PTR 1, Retail PTR 2, Retail PTR X. Yes, X is in the letter. I guess it's also a Roman numeral, so maybe that's what it's supposed to be. It's Retail PTR 10, but in Roman numeral form. I don't fucking know. But I had my add-on set up. I've had my add-on set up in the PTR for a while, because I've done a lot of testing runs here. And then when they moved over to Retail PTR 2, because I think they like started using the PTR 1 server for Classic or something. I don't really fully know. But then I got it all fixed, and I got all my stuff set up on Retail PTR 2 as well. But apparently, 10.1.5 is on the Retail PTR X server. Why? I don't fucking know. Why is the 10.1 PTR still active? Even though we're already testing 10.1.5, and that's apparently using up one of the main PTR servers. I really don't understand. But I thought I had my add-ons set up, and then I started the run, and I realized I didn't. And, like, I'm pretty bare bones here, right? Like, I have Details, Sexy Map, and Leatrix Plus set up. Those are, like, the only 3 add-ons that I consider remotely essential, and Details really isn't for a thing like this. I don't need to see my damage. It's nice sometimes, like, if I want to see, you know, how much damage I did on, like, a certain pull or something, I can check Details. But it's not mission critical or anything. I don't need to have it. Sexy Map is also just like a quality of life thing. It's probably one of the only, I don't even know if I would say quality of life, like aesthetic add-ons that I like. The main thing I like about it is it allows me to shift around elements on my map. So if for whatever reason I need to check something, which usually I don't in the middle of a speedrun, but just, I don't know, check mail or something like that. I did check the calendar earlier, so I guess that is something. But I like to have the non-default map because I really hate the default map. The icons are like impossible to see, at least for me. It's a massive pain in the ass. So that's like the only thing that I like. I hate the default map, so I like Sexy Map. But the only add-on that I would consider to be absolutely critical is Leatrix Plus. And is that a chest? That is a chest. I will gladly take that. I want to kill this guy just so I can. And at a glance, it's kind of hard, especially when I'm pulling multiple mobs, having the health not update. Like there, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do an AoE, because if the mob was low health, then I could have just done a spinning crane kick and finished it off. But I was like, is it still high? I don't know. Another thing that I want to check for is Lost Son of Aragorn is definitely up, right? Because it's the PTR, which means that basically every single rare here is going to be alive. And a lot of times when I'm, doing speed runs, I'll basically I won't like be too concerned with finding Lost Son of Aragorn, because there's a decent chance that he's dead. He's already a difficult rare to find. But if it's on live servers, right? Going out of your way to find a rare that is not only hard to find in a vacuum, but also just more than likely dead at any given time is just not worth it. But here, it's like a little bit of a different situation, because I know he's alive, because obviously nobody's killing Silverpine Forest rares in the PTR. So it's like, do I go out of my way to find him? Because he's somewhere, but he like patrols all the way like around here, zigzags down. So we'll see. What I'll probably do is when I come back to this section of Silverpine after the Gilneas bit, I'll check like this area by the Dalaran place, going over to the end of his patrol route over there. And if he's there, cool. If he's not there, oh well, so be it. What level am I? I'm level 19. Okay. I don't want to equip any gear yet, probably, unless I got a good BOE. But generally speaking, the quest rewards are not good. They're not an upgrade. This is... Or agility for... No, I don't even want to use that. At this point, yeah, quest rewards are just dog shit from Kata stuff. Would be nice if eventually they could change that, but it's not the end of the world. The only thing that I need to change in terms of my setup, I can refresh my food buff. The big stuff is at level 30. I also need more Darkman Firewater. Did I get all the quests? I did not get all the quests. Whoops, I always forget to pick this one up. I don't know why. Yeah, at level 20, I swap to... Let me find it in my bags. The only thing I change up is I start using Elixir of the Mongoose instead of Darkman Firewater. What do you mean I'm facing the wrong way? Oh, it's because I had the... crap. Alright. That's the only thing I swap. And then I swap a bunch of stuff at level 30. Level 30... Level 30 is when I start using Bear Tartar? No, that's level 40. Okay. But level 30, I can start using scrolls. It's also when I swap my potion. So right now I can pretty liberally use Swiftness Potion. It's not a huge concern. And eventually I can start using Potion of the Tol'vir. And I always forget to use my Drums of Fury. Alright, so one of the nice things about this, I already have fast mount speed, so this is 100% increase. That's really, really nice. That actually, it doesn't seem like much, but obviously this is with the 50% buff, right? So a lot of times it's without the 50% buff, it's not going to make a huge difference because generally speaking, level 20 tends to align around when you're in, you're going back to Silverpine and you're around the Sepulchre. So you can very easily return regardless. And I need to do that to enable War Mode anyway. So that is one of the few times where I will be going back to Orgrimmar, even with these changes, just because it's a little bit better. I can also unequip that, swap to Elixir of the Mongoose right here. And then let me use Drums, right? It's one of the few elites that I'll be fighting definitely within the next 10 minutes. So I should be fine. I'm stuck in combat. Okay, there we go. So even in a normal speedrun, what I was saying is that would still be a decent time save, because I'd probably get a bit of use out of the faster riding when I'm at the end of Gilneas. It also does save 1 or 2 minutes just flat, because you don't need to... I have to go over and get the Wolfsbane. You don't need to run all the way into Orgrimmar to learn riding training. All you need to do is just head to Orgrimmar like Dalharth, pop into Org, turn on War Mode, and then bam, you're back to the Sepulchre. So it, I didn't get in combat, right? Yeah, I avoided them. Okay. Getting stuck in combat there really sucks. Yeah, so I'm definitely saving time, just in a vacuum, right? But with the 50% buff, I wasn't going to go back and learn riding training regardless right now, even if I, whatchamacallit, what are words? I don't know what I'm saying. Point being, right now I could go back and turn on War Mode, but that would actually be a time loss, right? Because War Mode is 10%, but the amount of time that I would lose going all the way over there to turn on War Mode just to get 10% additional experience on these few quests, well, there is no Hearthstone point right here, so the run back would actually end up losing me more time than it would save. So I always end up waiting until right after the Gilneas section to actually go turn on War Mode or anything like that. Peak of Serenity, begin your training. Yeah. I got the quest, right? Yeah, okay, I can go over there. So no matter what, I would continue throughout the entirety of Gilneas before actually going back to either learn riding or turn on War Mode. So this would just be a huge bonus over traditional runs. Normally at this part of the run, it ends up being kind of slow because of that, exactly that. You aren't able to go back here anyways, so you end up just running around with slow mount speed. And 40% faster mount speed for this entire section really adds up. Dodge the Worgen Runners. All right, good, we got it. That's a small time save there. Or actually, I don't even know if I would say small. Getting in combat with the Worgen runners really sucks. That's like a massive time loss if it happens. And it's kind of impossible to avoid because you just never really know when they're going to bolt down, and you just can't react to it in time. If they decide to start running the moment you're crossing the street, you just get stuck in combat and you're fucked for the rest of Gilneas. It's the absolute worst. Let's see, there we go. That's like right here, I don't have gun shoes, so I'd have to slowly mount run all the way over here. But this is actually relatively efficient. It's quite nice, actually. One of the other reasons that, people who've seen a lot of runs will already know, I like to at least summarize this because I don't want to presume that you've seen every single speedrun. I've done a lot of different speedruns before, right? So I want to at least generally explain what I'm doing, especially the maybe not so clear parts, just in case somebody's watching this as like their introduction to like my speedruns or something like that, and they still get some useful information out of it. But one of the other reasons to delay turning on war mode or learning riding training until you finish Gilneas, specifically from a speedrun perspective, though I suppose it can also help if you're just lucky and happen to be doing casual leveling, is rare mobs. So generally speaking, I will do my speedruns on live servers at a time where I can find most rare mobs. And when you turn on war mode, you're put in a different phase. So if I go back to Silverpine Forest and it takes you to the Forsaken Front over there, there's 3 potential rare mob spawns, 4 if you get lucky and get a Lost Son of Aragorn, but 3 nearly guaranteed rares that you can find. And that's a pretty significant chunk of experience if all 3 are up. So if you kill all of those right after finishing Gilneas, after killing those rares, you go ahead and hearth back to Orgrimmar to pick up all the other stuff, and I should say, you Dalaran hearth and then portal hop. That's why we get the Dal hearth. And then turn on war mode and come back to Silverpine after the fact, after turning on war mode. Well, since war mode puts you in a different phase, it's possible that all of the rares are up once again on war mode. And now that you've killed the rares in 2 different phases, you've basically gotten an extra gigantic chunk of experience that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to get. And that is significantly more than 10% off like a handful of quests can get you. That's a pretty sizable bonus right there. So there's a number of reasons why it's not worth going to enable that stuff early on. I'll try to remember to pick my talents when I actually get to the flight section. I know some people might be wondering why I haven't picked my talents yet, and it's mostly just because, it takes time. If I'm every single level going through my talents and, put 1 point, spend, put another point, spend, it's just a massive pain. I would say the biggest quality of life thing that Blizzard could do, which I don't really know if they're going to do, because it, for new players, I can understand wanting to, read all of the talent points, but for experienced players making alts, I already know exactly where every single one of my points is going to go. So something that would be nice is if I could import a build ahead of time and basically say, this is the talent build that I want, and basically, pick the order, and then as I level up, it automatically places the talent point. I also, I remember early on in Dragonflight, I think I talked about this in some of my runs, I talked to some of my friends who are really good at making weak auras and add-ons and stuff, and basically was like, how possible is this? If you were to make a weak aura that could do it. And they said, very hard. Basically, I think all of them said it is theoretically possible, but it's the kind of thing that wouldn't necessarily be easy, because not only would you need to input the exact order, but then you would need code that basically auto selects it, and then there is a confirmation thing, so it wouldn't be able to do it for you. It would have to be some really janky workaround where it basically selects the talent when you open the menu. So the way they theorized is I open the talent point thing, and based on a preset list that I manually inputted into the weak aura or whatever before starting the run, it would then try to interact with that thing. But the other thing that they were never sure about, and I don't know if I ever got a concrete answer on that, is whether weak auras can even interface with these buttons. Obviously you can left click them and select it, but can you make a script that automatically clicks one of the buttons for you? Not everything can really be interacted like that with scripts. So it's possible that you can't even do that anyways. And the only thing that maybe you'd be able to do is like something that one of my friends said they could make for me is basically like an overlaid recommendation for talents. Basically, it reminds you to pick your talents. So every time you level up, there's like a big flashing, like, you know, hey, moron, you have unspent talents type thing. And then it on your screen shows you, like, spend your next talent point on X. But, you know, for new players, that might actually help. But for my purposes, for what I was looking for to help with speedruns, really wouldn't matter at all. Because, like, I know that I need to spend my talents. That's not a problem. And I know exactly what I'm going to spend my talents on. The problem is the time it takes to actually open up my talent thing and interact with it and spend them. It's a time loss, right? Especially at levels like this, where I'm getting like one level per 3 minutes or something like that. That was like a really fast level. So I'm not going to sit here and spend it. But then during a long cutscene like this is the perfect time. So now I can put 1 point into Open Palm Strikes, 2 into Flashing Fists, 1 into Flying Serpent Kick, 1 into Touch of Karma. Actually, no, I want Glory of the Dawn. Yeah. Glory of the Dawn, and then we're going to go Touch of Karma, Widening Whirl, Mark of the Crane. No, we're going to do that later. Right. I don't need Touch of Karma right now, because there's nothing that's really dangerous. What I can go is, yeah, I think next point will be in Karma, actually, because I need it to progress. I could also do Ascension, though. I might actually do Ascension. Historically, I've been putting 1 point into Karma here, but I could put 1 into Ascension, because I'm going to do that anyways. So I could go Ascension, then Storm, Earth, and Fire, then, what do I want to do next? Probably Swen. I think Swen would be better. Teachings of the Monastery is also really good. I could also just go Strike of the Windlord. I think that's what I would do. I would take Storm, Earth, and Fire, Strike of the Windlord, Meridian Strikes, Spiritual Focus, Teachings of the Monastery, and then I go Swen. Yeah. I think that works. And then I take Drinking Horn cover, then I go down this section, pick up Shadowboxing Treads, Dance of Chi-Ji, Forbidden Techniques, and all that fun stuff. And here I take Turbo Fists. Turbo Fists actually got a nerf. So this used to say, Fists of Fury deals full damage to all targets, also reduces their movement speed, and you parry all attacks. It's still a really broken talent, the main reason being the parry all attacks thing is a massive Windwalker survivability boost. That's like the main reason you took it. But it is a slight Windwalker AoE damage nerf. Really not enough to matter that much. So Windwalker's still quite good. I admit I first was like hard dooming when I saw that change, but it's really not that bad. It doesn't actually significantly change anything. Godfrey's belt. Okay, we can take this, and then we'll just wait on the RP a little bit. And yeah, so what I'll be doing here is brush that. I'm also just going to use my Draft of the 10 lands. I don't need to like try to conserve them, right? Because it's PTR. I have an infinite number of all these consumables. I can also, while I'm waiting on the RP, I can clean up my bags a little bit. I always want to check if you get BOEs, because if I get a leather BOE, that would actually be an upgrade. One of the reasons why I buy armor sets for like non-heirloom slots is specifically for that reason, because quest rewards at this level are so bad that you just never want to use them. In fact, I'd argue if you are going to buy leather BOEs for like, or any BOEs, right, for the other slots, which would be bracers, gloves, belt, boots, and then assuming you don't have Dread Pirate Ring, also 1 ring slot, do it for like the first 30 levels, because once you get to WoD, you actually get decent quest rewards, which will replace all of your other stuff and do have good itemization. But early on, it's really, really bad, so you could argue that is the most important time to get items for those slots. After that, it's not super important. But I've gotten all the things I really need. So then we're going to check for the rares. So talk to Sylvanas. I'll pick up the quests because it'll send me... Oh, right. Do I want to... I'm actually going to do this quest because the next quest will actually send me back to the Sepulchre. And I did set my hearth there earlier. Yeah, see, I remembered this time. A lot of times I forget, and I don't preset my hearth to the sepulcher, but it is actually a minor time save, because this is usually how the timing ends up working out. So yeah, we get both of the rares there. Obviously, it's on a PTR server. Right, so you're not always going to find them, but on the PTR, they'll pretty much always be up. So that's a nice chunk of bonus experience. And then Corpse Feeder, gotta go like so, tag him, drag him out. If you get too close, you phase in here, and then he drops combat. You can't kill him. So do that. Nice. And see, these things give a pretty fat amount of experience, even at low levels. But yeah, this is definitely going to be pretty efficient. What is this? An hour in and 24. I'm unsure as to how I'm doing compared to my world record. I forget. Because I have 2 world records, right? I have the Dark Iron Dwarf one, which that one is also really hard to gauge because I did that with dungeon spamming, at least for 10 to 20. And I still think, for the record, 10 to 20 dungeon spamming is the best way to go. However, that requires being on live servers. And I thought about doing it on live servers, but here's what I'll do. I'll split the difference, right? I will do a mix of runs that are on live servers and on the PTR, so you get to see all of the incoming changes. But you still get to see like runs done on live servers with dungeon runs and stuff like that. I will probably do all of the live server runs on streams, because I know that when I'm actually streaming it and doing it in real time, a lot of people like to try and like level along with me and, you know, see if they can join me and whatever. So if I'm doing like a less serious whatchamacallit, speedrun, it could be fun for people to try and like queue into me in dungeons or something like that. So I'll probably do that. You know, we can see how fast dungeon leveling is once again, even though I've already covered that, but you know, just compare even with the changes. There we go. There's the rare Aquarius, the Unbounds. One of the nice things about doing this before switching on War Mode 2 is because Aquarius, you know, he's another rare mob, that's another chunk of experience, so still continues to make it worth it. And if I'm lucky, which, you know, fingers crossed, I may actually find a chest up here. Come on. Come on. Nope. There's still more chest spots, though, so I wouldn't rule it out just yet. The main chest spots, top of that building, inside this little stable, like right along the wall there, in that broken house, you'll find some. If you've watched all my runs, you've probably seen me find a chest in every one of those spawn points at some point within a run. The other one is in that little logging area. Usually you find it right at the back, sitting against the wall. And then I think there's 1 or 2 spawn points inside this area. I also want to say it can spawn inside of this house, though I generally don't go up here, but now I'm just, you know, I've got the nose for chests. I usually don't go out of my way to find chests if it's on live servers, because your odds of finding chests are pretty low. I'm lucky if I find more than 1 in a single run, but, you know, it's the PTR, right? So there's going to be chests up the wazoo, and I might as well take advantage of that and try to grab as much bonus experience as I can get, just for shits and giggles. It's also just fun to find chests, right? And I know some people have asked me how I remember all of the chest spawns, and really it's just experience, right? Like, I don't have like all of these memorized, or at least I don't go in advance and try to memorize. I've literally never gone in this house before, by the way. I'm just like, on the off chance that there's a chest here, then I would have that knowledge for the future, but this is never worth the detour. You know, it's Schrodinger's chest, right? It's either in the path and you get it, or it's not there and you just assume it's not up. And it may be in that building, but you just assume that it's not. So it can exist and not. All right. All right. Well, I did say there are chests in the building. It's always in the last place you look. You know how it is. And then I can go back, turn in this quest, and then it'll give me the follow-up quest for going back to the Sepulcher, and at that point, I can go and turn on War Mode for an additional 10% experience. And I'm going to take a slight detour here, just because this will allow me to hit the very end of the Son of Aragol spawn pattern. We can see if he's up. Might as well, just because we know for a fact that he's alive. So he may have juked us every single time, but he also may be right at the tail end here, and I can get another rare's worth of experience. But yeah, I've done Silver Pines so many times that I've seen so many different chest locations. That one is actually one of the rarer ones. I wouldn't really necessarily say it's rare, right? But the thing about chest positions is notice how that chest was directly next to the quest item. So if that chest spawns on live servers, somebody who's just doing the quest line is going to find it. So generally speaking, you're not going to find that one, because unless you are the first person to encounter it, it's going to be taken by somebody else. The nice thing about those like nooks and crannies chest spots, which are the ones that I check, is they're like tucked away. So the one in like that burned down building over there, that one is really nice because it's right out in the open. You take basically 0 detours to get it, but because it's in that like broken house that's like off to the side of the area, and it's like tucked behind a wall, so you can't really see it unless you're looking directly at it, a lot of people walk by it. I found that one so many times because it probably sits there. Nobody actually thinks to go and check for it. And then, you know, it just waits for me to do the speed run, and it's still up, and bam, I get the chest. So a lot of the chest positions that I have memorized are ones that I've just found over the years in a lot of different runs, because I know for a fact that's like a really nice hidden spot that doesn't lose me any time to go and pick up. So it's just, you know, it's free experience. And I can at least like angle my camera around the corner to just see if it's there and, you know, take a little peek. And, I guess I didn't need to get the Dalaran Hearthstone because I do have the Monk Teleport, but, you know, it's really not a big deal. Dalaran Hearthstone loses, what, like a minute tops? So, better to just get, like, a good simulation of what this will actually look like. And then I mount up and over here. I wish you could just enable War Mode from any safe zone. The fact that it's only Valdrakken, Oribos, and the main cities, Orgrimmar and Stormwind, is still a little bit weird. Definitely not like any safe area out in the open world, but I think like enabling it in Dalaran, for instance, could be kind of nice. I take improved paralysis to get better access to other stuff down the line. And yeah, want to make sure I didn't forget to enable War Mode, because I've definitely done that before. All right, now Hearthstone to Sepulchre. I think I don't need to change anything else. We're good to go. Yep. As I was saying before. We'll get to see some of the other rares down the line. Yeah, I guess to continue with all the stuff that I was talking about before, though. So one of the main reasons that I did delay this run for as long as I did is because, A, I was working on that Trial of the Crusader video, but I was also working on a... Yeah, let's get Ascension here. I think that's what I said I was going to do before. I was also working on a video which is just a general guide for... I wouldn't say general, it's a pretty detailed guide for every single Heroic++ dungeon in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. So if you aren't familiar with the Wrath Classic changes, or if you just don't play Classic at all, they added a basically new hard mode difficulty for dungeons that never existed back in OG Wrath. It's exclusive to Classic, called Titan Rune Dungeons. Blizzard manages to make names that are just so overly complicated, I don't understand it sometimes. And the way that they've worded it is also weird, because now it's like the basic level of hard mode, which people are calling Heroic Plus, is Titan Rune Alpha, and the next level of hard mode is Titan Rune Beta. So most people just put H plus or H plus plus or something like that because it's easier to say than Titan Rune Beta dungeons. Like, I really don't know why they decided to give it such a flowery name, but they did, right? So these dungeons give like really good loot. Like right now, the Titan Rune Beta dungeons, which is the second level of the hard mode, the most recent one, it gives Ulduar loot, specifically Ulduar 10-man loot, and you can use special currencies to buy hard mode stuff from Ulduar. So there's like a vendor in Dalaran that sells all of the hard mode loot for a new currency called Sidereal Essence, Once again, really flowery name there. And doing these hard mode dungeons is a good way to get it. But the twist is that the hard mode dungeons, in addition to, like I said before, like 100% additional damage and health, they also have Mythic Plus affixes. And honestly, I've got to say, a lot of the affixes in classic dungeons are better than retail affixes. Like the coolest one, and I did this with my friends from my guild on retail who don't play classic at all. I think one of them played Wrath when Nax was out and like did Nax one time for nostalgia and then hasn't played since. So he was still like, you know, kind of a little bit rusty with it. But the rest of them had never played Classic, and I got them to help me test it, because I don't really know anyone who actually just plays Classic and is willing to help me do Classic PTR testing. I might actually make that a video, by the way. Slight side tangent. But I got a lot of good footage of me and like my guildies doing the classic dungeons, and it was funny because like they had no fucking clue what they were doing, right? Like I was kind of just holding their hands through it and being like, okay, this is how every single one of these mechanics work, and they're like, yeah, whatever, it's classic, it's easy, we don't need to know all this stuff. And it was kind of fun. It was like just a fun experience of all of us like goofing around, and you know, we would wipe to like some random mechanic and they're like, oh my god, classic dungeons are actually hard. So I think it would be a fun video topic of like mythic retail raiders versus classic hard mode dungeons or something like that. That's like the working title that I have in my head. I don't actually know if I'm going to make that video, but I do think it could be at least like somewhat interesting to watch. Fun to watch really is the more important thing. And I'm actually going to gun shoes and walk back here because there's going to be rare mobs along the way. So it'll be only slightly slower than if I were to take the flight path, but I also get some nice free experience along the way. This is one of those things where I usually... It depends. If I'm going for a speed run, a lot of times I will do this, because it's like, you kind of want to, in speedruns, go for the best case scenario. Like, you're already going for a world record attempt, right? You might as well take a gamble and go for like the if this works, it gains me like an extra minute of time or something like that. You know, the really big time saves. So if there's like a chest here, then I get like a chest and a rare mob. You know, 2 birds, 1 stone. Like, oh boy, that's really, really nice. It also lets me kill Fuel Ravenclaw here, where otherwise I would have to backtrack slightly to get him. And you want to kill him anyway, so it's fairly efficient. You get a few potential chest locations, which I didn't find here. I could have maybe checked the barn or other areas to see if it was up there, but I don't really want to take too many detours. And I think I got... Did I get a BOE? I got a cape. No leather. Or at least no good leather. No leather for, like, bracers, belts, gloves. Unlucky. Not a huge deal, though. Like, at this point, this is why I always say, like, a lot of people will ask me, you know, what's the point of doing, like, speedruns like this when it's, like, so expensive, right? You have to spend so much gold. And I will say this every single run, because I still get people asking me about it. I just want to drive that point home. 90% of the time save comes from 10% of the cost. You know, the gun shoes and goblin gliders and stuff like that. And honestly, a huge chunk of the, you know, time that you'd save is from getting fast flying, which was 5,000 gold. Now speedruns and even casual leveling runs are 5,000 gold cheaper, which was a huge chunk of like my budget cost. A lot of times I would do like 5k gold speedruns or something like that, and I'd have to buy items on a budget to, you know, for the speedruns, and I would actually end up saving almost all of that to get fast flying, because that is just a bigger time save than anything else. I would buy like a handful of gun shoes, a handful of gliders. But you can see here, I've used a decent amount of gun shoes. I've used 11 so far. I've only used 2 gliders, only used 2 XA1000 surface skimmers. Alliance can use diving suits and swim speed potions to save a little bit of time in Red Ridge Mountains. Yeah, I think it's really only Red Ridge where that actually comes into play. But that's also, generally speaking, really cheap. Swiftness potions are not necessary. You know, they save a little bit of time. I've used a few of them, but generally speaking, it's like a super minimal time save. Really, a lot of this stuff, like most of it is just the gun shoes and the gliders. And the reason I get all of the fancy gear sets and stuff like that is there's 2 reasons I like getting the gear sets. One, especially at higher levels, I don't want to sit here and spend time like looking through my inventory to like compare quest rewards to what I currently have, because every second in a speedrun counts. And if I'm sitting there trying to like, compare like, okay, well, this one has slightly more crit, but it has like one less agility. Do I wear this or do I not? That's just like mental math that I just want to take away from the actual speedrun. I want the speedrun to be about like the actual gameplay, not about like the trying to figure out the gearing stuff on the fly. And I know some people may disagree with that. Some people may say, well, I think that's interesting. I think like the gear comparing and stuff is a fun part of the speedrun. And I get that, but it's just to each their own, right? I've done speedruns like that before. So I've definitely done stuff for people who prefer that kind of thing. But a lot of my world record attempts, obviously, within reason, I like to do everything I can to save time. The only things that I won't allow are things that I consider unfair. I like to keep like one basic guiding principle for all of my speedruns, which is, can a new player, or not like a brand new player, but can like a solo player who's, not super experienced with the game and also doesn't have like a million connections to call upon or whatever, can they do all of the same things that I'm doing in this run? Or more importantly, can they benefit from like all of the same resources? And you could argue that gold is a factor, right? Sure, I may have access to more gold because I played for a while, but there are ways to earn gold, right? So it's not like I have to spend a shit ton of time before every single run farming gold or whatever. A lot of it is really not that expensive. And sure, would maybe a new player who has absolutely nothing need to farm for a bit more, whereas I have it stockpiled for years? Yeah. Would they need to invest in heirlooms? Sure. But the thing I think about heirlooms that makes it like fine to use, obviously, heirlooms are kind of a staple, right? Is heirlooms, if you're interested in speed leveling, are kind of like the number one thing of, yeah, invest in this. It's, I thought I saw a chest, but it was just those little barrels right there. Confused me for a second. It's pretty well known that, like, if you are going to be doing speed leveling, heirlooms are a no-brainer, right? This is the kind of thing that you should invest in. And sure, you can even level without heirlooms. They give you a minor bonus because of the rested experience thing. So within a speedrun, I would say heirlooms are actually less useful than they are for casual play, because the rested experience bonus that you get if you're leveling like over the course of a longer period of time actually really does save you a decent amount of time. But because I'm not really gaining rested experience other than niche situations, like you get items that give you a chunk of rested XP in Spires of Iraq and stuff like that. But currently I don't actually use Spires in the route because it's not really as fast as a lot of people seem to think it is. But, there's other like benefits to heirlooms, right? The gear scales with you. You can put enchants on it and it just kind of scales with you as well. So it makes that part a little bit easier. Heirlooms are good, right? But you can do the run without them. And I think it's one of those things where it's not impossible to get. There's obviously a line in the sand that I draw for some of them. Like I don't have the Garrosh heirlooms for Monk, which would be like, fist weapons or I think like axes or something like that. Technically speaking, the Garrosh heirlooms are better than what I'm using. The only Garrosh heirloom I actually have is I have the two-handed axe, because I didn't really have a lot of alts back in the day. Like, I had alts back in, like, Miss of Pandaria and stuff, but I didn't really play them a lot. I still kind of don't really play my alts much. Like, a lot of my alts are just sitting at max level, and I just use them to farm stuff, and I don't actually, like, really play them a lot, or I'll, like, change them season by season, right? But, like, now that I'm maining Vengeance Demon Hunter, for instance, I barely touch my Brewmaster. My Brewmaster is still, like, mostly Vault of the Incarnates gear. Because, I'm not the type of person who enjoys playing a million different things at max level all the time. And some people do. Like, for instance, my raid leader has basically every single tank geared up at like at least a high level heroic Aberrus level, and sometimes he'll bring them in for alt runs and whatnot, and he does, like, he's at like 2.5k IO bare minimum on every single one of his alts, and I think he's at like 3k or something on his main, right? So he loves playing all of his different characters. He's also pushing for whatever the Keystone Season Hero achievement is. I forget the name. So I guess it's more important for him to do that. And I don't know, like, to me, it's, I like doing all that stuff on one character per season. I like raiding on one character. If I need to have an alt, I will. So, uh, like last season, I had Brewmaster and Prot Warrior, and I ended up playing my Brewmaster most of the time, but I kept my Prot Warrior up. But this season, I played my Brewmaster for like 2 weeks, and then it became very clear that Vengeance Demon Hunter was really, really, really strong. And I was just kind of like, yeah, this is the only thing that I'm going to be playing for the rest of Prague. So I just didn't really keep up my Brewmaster because I figured, oh, there's no point. Oh man, I fucking did it again. A lot of people have probably been screaming at me, right? This is what happens. I've done this multiple times, right? This is not even the first speedrun where I've made this mistake. That's whatever. It's not a world record attempt. It doesn't fucking matter. For reference, if you don't know what I fucked up, I didn't finish this quest. That's important, because the quest that I was just doing, the one to kill that shield, yeah, you gotta do this one first, or the other one that I just completed. So that entire thing that I just did, that entire minute of waiting for this RP, while rambling about some random bullshit, doesn't count. I need to do it all again. That's what I get. All of that to say, basically explaining why I only have one Garrosh heirloom. Obviously, I didn't have many characters at max level back then, and I wasn't like super into raiding. So nowadays, if I see that something is like important, I will generally try to collect it, just in case. You know, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll need this. You know, you never know. But back in the day, I didn't have enough characters, and I didn't really care. I wasn't thinking about like, oh, you know, 5 or 6 years from now, I'm going to be doing a lot of speed leveling runs, and it would be really nice to have these overpowered heirlooms for when I start making speed leveling videos. No. Back then, I was like, do-de-do-de-do, I'm gonna go to college and be a history teacher, and yeah, that didn't go exactly as I thought. At least the history teacher part. I've already talked about that before, but yeah, I went for 1 semester for that, and then I changed my major to computer science and game design. So, you know, never really thought I'd end up here. I don't really think anyone who ends up making YouTube videos thinks they're going to end up making YouTube videos. Like, I know, it's kind of funny because like I've had a lot of friends who tried to make YouTube videos or like wanted to be YouTubers or whatever, and did that for a while. And I remember for years and years and years, my friends would actually ask me why I never streamed. Because they would, like, throughout Legion, throughout BFA, I had a lot of friends who would stream or, like, make very small videos. We're talking, like, 100 subscriber stuff. Like, they did not have a lot of viewers, right? But that's the point. I had a lot of friends who had, like, small streams or, like, small YouTube channels and stuff. And I remember a lot of them thought it was weird that I didn't stream at all, and I never really made YouTube videos, especially because I've kind of mentioned this before, but I've been doing like little guides like this for years for my friends. So I remember I made like a whole little guide for Nazjatar for my guild at the time, because I was like really, really into Nazjatar farming, and I made like an outline of all the important things to do in Nazjatar, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember a lot of them were like, why don't you like make videos about this stuff? Like you're losing out on so much, you know, just turn this into a video or start streaming all this stuff that you do. And I'm like, you know, I'm not interested in it, right? I'm not going to be one of those streamers, right? And obviously hindsight is 2020, and it's a bit ironic given the circumstances. But the only reason I even did this in the first place is I actually I did something similar, right, with my Covenant spreadsheet, where I was talking to some of my friends who quit back in BFA, and they were interested in Shadowlands, bless them. And I was trying to, like, you know, help them out, because they heard about the Covenant system, and they were trying to look into, like, what their class would need to play, and they weren't really sure. So I was like, oh, I'll help you out, and I'll do some research on it, because that's what I'm good at, right? So I did a bunch of research into, like, the different class discords and different like feedback posts and things that people discussed about the covenants, and gathered information roughly on how good every single covenant was for every single spec. And I compiled it into a spreadsheet, shared it with my friends, and helped them out. And then they were like, oh, you should like post this in Reddit or something. And I'm like, nah, you know, it's not good enough to be posted on Reddit. It was just like whatever my spreadsheet that I threw together after like, a weekend of reading through different discussions on the subject. But then I started sharing it with people on the Shadowlands beta, and then it started growing really popular. And then I was like, fuck it, I'll listen to my friends, I'll share it on Reddit, and obviously, the rest is history, right? Like, um, I ended up doing the same thing for my leveling guide, and then I actually started making videos consistently, or at least semi-consistently. I wasn't even sure what the fuck I was doing the first like few months I made videos. I would just kind of upload whatever. Which is that's kind of the thing. It's like it feels very different making videos like, I don't want to say full time, because like I technically am doing YouTube full time now. I mentioned that in my Discord, right? But it's like, I don't necessarily make enough for it to be a full time job yet. But it's like, I graduated college, and I'm kind of in that like weird transitional period of like, now I'm not in college, and I'm at a point where maybe I can make this a full time thing, and it's not like terrible at the moment. So instead of like jumping straight into a job and kind of sidelining YouTube, I can at least give this a shot. And that's kind of where we're at right now. But that process is definitely very different than like early on when you're just making videos for shits and giggles, right? Because when I'm just making videos for fun, right? Obviously, I have fun making videos, right? And I think that's an important thing that a lot of people don't fully understand. There's a difference between making videos for fun and having fun making videos, right? Like I'm still having fun making videos and recording all this stuff, right? Like I don't hate it. Obviously, if I hated this and it ended up and was still taking more time than like a traditional job, then why would I be doing this, right? So part of the reason for this, even though it is a shit ton of work, is that I enjoy it, and I would enjoy this definitely more than I would like a typical 9 to 5 job. So that's why I'm doing it. But what a lot of people don't understand is just because I can enjoy this doesn't mean I can just upload whatever the fuck I feel like. And just because I may want to make a video on a subject that may take like, weeks of research and stuff, doesn't mean I can necessarily justify that if I know it's not going to perform well at all. It kind of goes back to the earlier thing of people saying, oh, well, if you made this, I would watch it. And it's like, I appreciate that, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. I need to spend my time wisely. And if I'm spending like weeks delaying other videos that I know are going to get views, that I know people will watch regardless, to make something that is, in essence, a passion project that won't perform well, I mean, at the end of the day, if I am doing this as a career, that's the kind of decision that I have to unfortunately say, yeah, I gotta focus on more stuff. Like right now, what I want to be doing more than anything right now is playing Classic. I've talked a lot about like my Classic guides and stuff like that, and I'm not, like, to be clear, not quitting retail World of Warcraft. I'm not going to stop making retail World of Warcraft videos or anything like that. But one thing that I've definitely found recently is that I don't really enjoy retail WoW much outside of raids, right? Like I don't even love leveling. I don't hate it. Like this hasn't been the worst experience ever, but I I don't level any characters for fun outside of like recorded runs now. Just because it's like I've done it so many times and I've optimized it to the point where it's just not enjoyable to me. And to be honest, like the core gameplay loop outside of speedruns, it's just not fun. Like this is pretty mindless, right? So I have the video recording aspect of it to kind of take my mind off the monotony of leveling. And a lot of times if I do have to do this, I will try to, I don't know, like watch Netflix. Like I rewatched all of Black Mirror, or rather I watched the latest season of Black Mirror and then I rewatched the rest of Black Mirror recently. Now I'm watching The Americans, which is a show on Hulu that my dad has been telling me to watch for like a long time, like half a year at this point. He keeps saying, "Watch The Americans, watch The Americans," but then he's always like, he'll tell me, "Oh, all right, well, Lost Son of Aragorn, found it right at the end, right as I was about to exit the zone. That is convenient. I also bandit boots. That's leather, right? Yeah. All right, leather BOE boots. That is Awesome. That is exactly what I was looking for. Hopefully I get some more leather BOEs in Hillsbrad, because there's a lot of rares here, a lot of good chances to get that. I also, maybe I should have turned off Chromie Time. Nah, I don't want to have to go back and do that. Normally what I would do is I would be doing this outside of Chromie Time, so as you can see, we're in it. Everything scales up to 61. I don't know if I mentioned that. I had to do a lot of takes before I started the speedrun. I don't know why this morning, but like I recorded 10 attempts to do that introduction right at the very beginning of like explaining the run, like talking about the stream time. And every single time, like I would either forget what I was saying at like some point and whatnot, and I would have to restart. And obviously, like, this isn't scripted or anything, like this actual run. You know, I just, middle of the run, I just talk. You know, if I need to stop and pause and think things over, I will do that. But the first 2-3 minutes, there's two reasons I want to make sure it's not necessarily scripted, but at least concise and well spoken. One, if somebody's watching the video and I'm sitting there tripping over my words, like, then they're going to be like, oh, this guy's a fucking dumbass. I'm not watching his video. And they'll just click off. So I want to make sure at least the beginning, where, you know, you're getting into the run, is good. And I'm not jumbling all my shit. But then also, I've had a few runs in the past, and I would say like far past at this point, because I've made an effort to stop it, where I will sit there for like 20 minutes before starting the run, talking. A lot of the stuff that I now try to do while I'm in Silverpine Forest, explaining like, you know, early tech that I'll be doing, just so I don't need to talk through it while I'm actually doing it. I will try to say that all ahead of time. At this point, most people kind of know what's going on. I haven't made any major changes. I usually do that more for world record runs, also because in there it's more important that I'm like actually focused and that I'm not, as one YouTube comment said, speaking like a waterfall. I love that one. YouTube comment, that's in reference to, I mentioned this in another video. There was a YouTube comment on my Alliance world record where some guy was like, oh, he said he wasn't going to talk a lot, but then after 5 minutes, he started speaking like a waterfall or something like that. And that wording, it's always stuck with me. Every time I find myself talking a lot, I think to myself, oh man, I'm speaking like a waterfall now. And I love that comment. There's so many like dumb comments that just stick with me. And every time I think of them, I chuckle. Like one of my favorite comments, at least I would say at this point, probably my favorite comment of all time. It's so dumb, but at least it's my favorite comment that I remember is on my frog video of you know, Dragonflight's secret fishing boss, the short, which I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen by now. But you know, it's my guild accidentally summoning the frog and the frog like jumping in. And some guy commented, yet when I do this, I get called the N-word and dropped from Mythic Prog. It's just so dumb. I just the escalation of that comment. I'm guessing it's made up, but I just like to believe that that's actually what happened. That this guy tried to have a fun moment with his guild, and they just called him the N-word and kicked him out. And it's so ridiculous and so out of nowhere. Like, it's just a fun video of my guild, and that guy leaves that comment, and it's just like I said, it's so stupid. But that every time I think of that comment, I giggle because I'm just envisioning that situation, and it's so absurd. I don't know. How did I get on this tangent? Oh yeah, the introduction. Yeah, I had to. I don't know. I kept like stumbling over my words over and over and over. So all that to say, I'm sure in some variations of the intros that I tried and failed to record, I mentioned that Chromie Time now scales up to 61. I obviously had a video with all the changes that explain that, but, you know, just in case you haven't watched that, that is one of the changes. And I guess it's kind of weird now, right? Because Chromie Time has always been pretty nice and separated in that, you know, it's 10 to 60, and then the final 10 levels are the new expansion. And now it's like the final 9 levels are the new expansion. And I already get enough comments asking me why I start at level 10. I get so many comments, more now than before, because I think a lot of people now aren't as familiar with allied races. It's not like as normalized of a thing. So a lot of people don't understand, why is this guy starting a higher level? What's the point? Uh, but imagine if I posted a level 10 to 61 speedrun. That would be like the most, well, it would make sense, right? But for a lot of people who don't understand the changes, it would seem just completely arbitrary. It's like, why? Oh, I actually did get leather gloves. That's actually huge. All right, we've gotten two really good BOE pieces so far. But yeah, like imagine you know nothing about World of Warcraft leveling, and you know levels start at 1 and end at 70, and you see somebody posting a level 10 to 61 speedrun. It would seem like you're just making up your own category just to say that you won. Like imagine, if I couldn't get the world record for 10 to 60, so I made up my own 10 to 61 category, and then I was like, ah ha ha ha, I have now what is this? Striking more than one enemy with Fist of Fury? Yo, what the fuck? That's insane! This is a new PvP talent? Wait, this is cracked! You just summon free Storm Within Fire? Oh my god! Alright, Windwalker Stonks Rising. Fucking hell. Wow. Well, now, that is... It's actually, like, really fucking good. Alright. See, here's the thing. I will give you a little bit of a spoiler. So when I was thinking of doing that like speed run for like getting a really fast run with all the buffs, including Darkmoon Fair buff, one thing that I was going to change is I was actually going to do it on Guardian Druid, and I might still, because I think Guardian Druid used to be what I ran with for yeah, Guardian Druid used to be what I ran with for all of my old world records, but with the changes to routing, the main thing is Alliance is faster, right? Alliance gets a faster war mode bonus. In a vacuum, uh, or actually, I would say it's not in a vacuum. It's specifically in practice because the war mode bonus and a few other slight things like that. Alliance ends up being slightly faster. So if you want to get like the fastest possible speed run, you do Alliance. And the thing about Alliance is because of the way that the routing works, you need to go to Loch Modan, but getting to Loch Modan is a bit difficult. So I found a way to get to Loch Modan that's fast that doesn't require Dark Iron Dwarf. Because before, unless you were a mage, which mage isn't like a good world record speedrunning class, Arcane isn't bad. Like mage is a decently fast leveling class, but it's not the type of thing where you're gonna save time by playing mage, right? So I'm not going to use that for world record attempts, even if it did have really good tech, unless the portal to Ironforge was able to save you like more time than playing Windwalker Monk, which it won't. Then there's no point. And also because Dark Iron Dwarf exists, there was effectively zero reason to just not play Dark Iron Dwarf and get a free Mole Machine Racial, which takes you. This is what I have it bound to Shift 7. Yeah. You just get a Mole Machine Racial, which lets you skip straight to Ironforge and basically makes that really, really easy. So that's why Dark Iron Dwarf is so good. It's because it gives you basically a free 3 to 5 minute time save just by existing because of the way its Mole Machine Racial works. I need to make sure I'm not in combat when this fades so that I can immediately go into another one. So I'm going to do this Flying Serpent Kick across the water, and ha 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 ha! I love this thing. XA1000 Surface Skimmer is like one of the most satisfying items in the game to use. I fucking love the little speedboat across the water. It's just visually, it's so sick, and from like a speedrun point of view, it's such a nice time save. Like you would not be able to do this part of the route if you didn't have XA1000s. Like you could, but it would no longer be efficient whatsoever. You would still get that rare mob, but well, actually, technically, I didn't even need to do that. One of the reasons why that's nice is because normally the way that I would do this if I didn't have this buff is I would be outside of Chromie Time, and I also wait. I have flying. Yeah. Yeah, so here's the thing. I technically could fly right now. That wasn't a time loss, for the record. It would still have been faster to use XA1000, and it's still faster to use Gunshoes here compared to slow flying. But what I just said, literally, is not true. It used to be that you would not be able to reliably do this without XA1000 because it would just take way too long. Now you have flying, so you can just fly there. And yeah, that would honestly be just as fast. Slightly slower just because XA1000 is a little bit more efficient, but it would still get you most of the time save. Ooh, got a little bit of distance off that cliff. And we can go into the mine and do the next part of the quest. Did I get anything good? That's a mail belt. Unfortunate. Fuck. Yeah, this one it's hard to use the interact. And I can't see their health because of the stupid thing. Yeah, that's it's a little bit unfortunate. Yeah, I'll have to use the quest, especially the fact that the nameplates are bugged, so I can't reliably see their health. It's hard to keep track of. Oh my god! Alright, I just two-shot that guy before I even had a chance to imprison him. Don't proc, don't proc, don't proc, don't proc. There we go. Alright. Sometimes Elemental Force, I think that's what happened there. It'll just proc and one-shot it as you're trying to capture the Hillspread Miners. So... Oh, the Foreman, yeah, you can't. Okay, head to the back over here. And... Come on, don't... There's always like a little bit of a delay, and I don't want to click off it, because then, yeah, it's a pain. There's enough Hillspread Miners that, generally speaking, as long as I don't get really unlucky, I can get all of the ones imprisoned. I'm in combat with something. Okay, never mind, it dropped. Just want to make sure I wasn't, like, proximity aggroed onto one of the miners, and that it would fuck me in the end. I think we're good. What was I saying before? I can drop this. Few things. Do Ghost Elixir. Put these on my bars. And re-food buff. Yeah, let's just redraft with 10 lands. I have more than enough to finish the run. Hillspread Sentries took a while to respawn here. Come on. Oh, that counted. Interesting. I also saw... Oh no, that's a quest reward. I thought for a second that was something I could use. Okay, I'm just auto-attacking. Give me credit. There we go. Fuck. Alright. In any other situation, Strike of the Windlord one-tapping that mob would have been very nice. This is the one mob that I don't want to instantly die when I attack it. Come on. Come on. There we go. It's such an annoying quest, but, you know. It is required as a prereq for the other stuff. Let me quickly clean out my bags. I can get the rest of it later on, because normally I would actually clean up my bags as I ran to this thing. Or I would actually... Yeah, I should be gun choosing, because it's still faster than slow flying. Yeah. What was I saying before? About, yeah, generally speaking, you know, one of the things I was saying before is I've just been enjoying playing Classic just more outside of Raid. Like, I don't know, I think it's just also because, you know, I've kind of done all there is to do in regular World of Warcraft. Like, I don't know, it's just, it doesn't... I don't get joy out of doing the same thing, but with, like, a slightly different class, right? Like, I don't like spamming Mythic Plus, but with a different spec. And I don't know, I've seen all of that already. And it's just not engaging anymore. What do I want? I want... Yeah. Let's go with that. And I think Classic is just, it's different. And it feels a lot different to play. And one of the things that I am working on, which is something that people have requested for a while, is Classic speedruns. So I don't really know yet. Well, I honestly, I don't even want to guarantee it, so I will at least like tease it because I know some people will probably be like happy to hear that it's at least something I'm considering. Because I've been saying for a while I'm not doing classic speedruns, and part of the reason for that is it's a lot of work to get that set up, right? So retail speedruns at this point aren't super difficult because now that I have the resources to do it, it's not hard, right? Like I have every heirloom unlocked. I have all the allied races unlocked. I have a massive stockpile of like every single thing, consumable, whatever that I would need to actually let me just count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, oh fuck. 9, 10, 11, or that shit. 13, 14, 15. I got sidetracked and I think I lost count momentarily when that mob attacked me and I like skipped a number or something or fell behind. I don't know. Either way. Yeah, it's I don't know. How do I put this? It's there's a lot of setup that goes into doing any of these runs, into doing any speed run, really. And retail WoW is no exception. Like I've said before, you can get, most of my route with a minimum of, the knowledge and stuff that goes into it, and all the consumables and whatnot. But it's different when you're actually trying to like look for things to save time. So if I have an idea, it's another one of those things of like ability to test stuff. If I have an idea of something that saves time, I have so much knowledge of every single quest line in retail WoW because I've been playing Cataclysm onwards really actively. Like I've technically played this game since vanilla, but I was so young that outside of like a few memorable quests, I could not tell you how half of the classic questing experience works. And of course, what I've done since playing like actual classic. Um, but Cataclysm, I mean, even going into when I started doing my leveling guides back in Shadowlands and stuff, I had done these quests a million times over the years, and all throughout WoD and stuff like that. I have done all of those quests many, 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 many times. So it's easy for me to theory craft like changes to the route and figure out things that I could do to save time. If I'm just sitting there thinking about like, is there a way that I can like make this a bit easier or smooth this out? Like this part of the route feels a little bit janky. Is there like a way I can optimize this? And I can like think through all the different like things that I know just about like the questing experience, right? And it's easy for me to make changes to the route and integrate that into a speed run. Or let's say I don't know, looking for a consumable or something like that. I know enough about like consumables and what's good and what's not over the years to kind of figure things out. It's also one of the reasons why, new expansions. Obviously, new expansions require a lot of testing and stuff, but usually it's easy enough for me to figure all those things out. Going back is actually harder than it may seem because while I have a decent understanding of the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, I never really efficiently ran those because they've never been efficient zones. So while I played it back in the day and I vaguely remember the quests, I could not tell you what the fastest way is through those zones, right? I could make a guess, but it would require a lot of testing. And then when it gets to the old zones, I mean, there are tons of zones in Classic WoW that I've just never played. Because, back in the day, I only did a handful of zones, right? I did a lot of dungeons when I was really young. I didn't really like doing questing because I thought it was really boring in original Classic. You know, as a kid with ADD, it's really hard to stay focused for, a long questing experience. So back when I was like 10, I wouldn't be able to stay, focused on questing for hours like I can now. And even now, I get antsy after like towards the end of the speed run. After a while, it gets I just get restless and I just need to get up and move around and stuff like that. But Especially early on, like I was not really good at leveling when I was like a little kid, right? So I have like no knowledge of all of the basic classic zones, which is something that I would need, right? So not only to speedrun classic, at least speedrun classic to my standards. So something that people have suggested is just doing a speedrun from scratch with like no anything mailed over or whatever. And it's like I could do that, but at that point, especially for classic, it's literally just a casual playthrough. And then some people have said, "Oh, well, I'd watch you do casual playthroughs of classic." And here's one of those things. Remember before when I said like, sometimes the fun thing to make videos of, is different than, having fun making videos. Like the difference between making videos for fun and having fun making videos. Like I have fun leveling through classic WoW, and I recorded some of them. I had fun doing that. I had fun recording my classic WoW leveling videos. But here's the thing. I can't do that. I can't make those videos for fun because every time I've uploaded a classic WoW leveling video, despite what a few people in the comments would say of like, "Oh yeah, I'd watch you level through classic WoW," people don't, right? And I get it. It still gets views, right? I'm sure all the people who say, "Oh, I would love to watch you level through classic WoW," I'm sure a lot of them are actually watching that. But there's not enough, especially not enough for me to justify making videos. I still enjoy leveling in classic WoW, right? So I've still been leveling like my Death Knight. In fact, the moment I'm done doing the speedrun, I'm probably going to hop on classic and continue leveling my Death Knight. Right now, before I hop into Northrend, I'm at level 67, and I'm running around grabbing all the midsummer bonfires because I figure kill two birds with one stone, right? I'm almost at 68, so I just need to get like the last bit there, and then I can get all of the blossoms so that I can get the consumables. So then if I use my Death Knight for raiding the last week of Midsummer, I'll have all those consumables ready to go. By the way, in Classic, if you do play, those consumables do stack with food buffs, so it's good to get like the spell power and haste and hit rating ones. It's just free buffs, right? So that's kind of why I'm doing it on my Death Knight. But that's pretty much what I'll do the moment I'm done doing this. Like that's what I'll be doing in my free time for fun, right? So it's not like I don't do it for fun, even though I can't make videos of it, but it makes it harder to justify. And, when I'm able to do the fun thing and do the thing that gets views at the same time, well, that's great, right? It makes my life a lot easier. But a lot of times I do need to ultimately pick and choose where I spend my time. And I have found that when I do casual classic leveling, it doesn't get views. So that basically I effectively can't use that for videos. If my classic leveling videos were getting the same amount of views as as my retail leveling videos, I'd be doing a bunch more of those. I'd still be doing the retail ones just because, I have leveling guides to maintain and people like watching these, right? And I don't hate doing this. Like I said before, I don't level in retail for fun, but I still enjoy recording these videos, so I'm still going to do that. But I sure as hell will be uploading a lot more like casual classic leveling videos if people actually watched it, right? But they don't. And I found that out over time. So instead of it being something that I can, dedicate more time to, like if I was like, oh yeah, people actually watch the classic leveling videos, then I'd be able to level way more characters because then I could be like, oh, well, I'll upload this and then I'll get like a decent amount of views and then I won't feel pressured to upload a video. Or I'm like, gonna not be able to do this as a career, right? The never ending pressure of like, if my channel doesn't keep doing well, then I'm fucked, right? That kind of like gnawing anxiety. I could appease that by saying, oh, well, I'll just level a classic video because those do well, right? But they don't. So instead of it being something that I can make videos for, it ends up being purely a free hobby time type of thing. However, what I do think would be interesting, because I've looked into it, and to my surprise, it's actually kind of an untapped market, is like actually good classic speedruns. Because, I'm not throwing shade at classic speedrunners. Some of them I definitely am, because there's a lot of classic speedrunners who, specifically, let's just say this. there are a lot of classic speedrunners affiliated with a certain add-on that I do not respect at all, for reasons unrelated to their speedrunning ability. But I also just don't think that uploading a 3-day long speedrun in 27 parts where you do nothing but level through the zones slightly efficiently with like no commentary, I also just don't think that's good content, right? And I don't think that's interesting. But I also just don't really think they're great outside of that. I'm sure there's a lot of good classic speedrunners. It's unfortunate that a lot of the really high-level ones are affiliated with certain add-ons that will not be named, that I'm sure people who play classic know what I'm talking about. But yeah, not a fan of them. I've discussed it in the past, and it's actually slightly what motivates me to make a classic leveling guide, which, maybe I'll do. But all of that to say, right, the entire reason why I was iffy on doing classic speedruns is if I were to do classic speedruns, there is a ton of effort that goes into preparation, getting everything set up for it that I've already done on retail, right? I've been leveling casually on retail for years. I already had that set up by the time I started doing speedruns. I would have to get resources for like gear sets and consumables and all that fun stuff, the stuff that makes the speedruns interesting, and, would actually get the speedruns views instead of just casual leveling with no heirlooms or no special things, etc. Because as I have shown on retail, that's the kind of stuff that people like, because no matter how many comments I receive, even on retail, telling me, do a speedrun without all the fancy blah, 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 those ones don't get views, right? That's just how it goes. I've done them. Some people watch them. Most people don't. Most people tune in to watch the fun retail runs where I am using all the fancy stuff, where I am trying to get like the fastest time possible and pulling out like all the different tricks. That's the type of stuff that I have the data to prove people are more interested in watching. And considering I haven't really gotten much interest in any classic like casual stuff, it stands to reason that the same thing would be true there, and that classic players maybe would be interested in watching some really cool like tech and stuff like that, which I'm sure I could do, right? Just because I'm not super familiar with the zones doesn't mean that I, can't transit or transfer some of like the speedrunning tech into classic as well. But I think maybe that would be interesting, so I could start doing that. But it takes time to set up. It's the kind of thing that isn't, Rome isn't built in a day, right? World record speedrun attempts aren't done overnight. If they were, I would have so much more free time. So I'm in the process of working on getting that set up. And what I am going to do in the meantime is, because, the whole thing that I said about, it's hard to do classic speedruns if you don't have zone knowledge. I'm going to start doing, I don't know exactly when I'll do the first stream of this. I might do it next weekend, maybe not. Kind of depends on how I'm feeling. I'm going to start doing a stream series, specifically always live stream this. It also, honestly, it'll give me an excuse to stream more often, because people have been asking me for a while when I'm going to return to streaming, and my reasoning has always been I just don't have anything interesting to stream. I know some people, the common response I get from people in Discord and stuff is like, I would watch you level just like as something to put on, like whatever. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, and I get that. I know some people still would just enjoy watching my streams like I used to do back in the day. But a lot of times it's difficult to find the time. Nowadays, I have a little bit more free time, so that's why I'm considering this, right? But what I might do is leveling through every single zone in WoW Classic, specifically like the original ones, both on Alliance and on Horde. So this would, of course, that's a lot of quests, right? But it would basically be over the course of many, many streams, many, many hours, literally completing every single zone in Classic WoW. And then once I've done all of them, and I've gotten practice and familiarized myself with literally every quest in the game, then, and only then, will I start doing speedruns. And in the meantime, what I'm doing outside of that is I have already begun like researching into that stuff, into like consumables and gear sets and preparation and stuff like that. And I've begun basically building like I don't know, like a compendium, for lack of a better word, of just documenting all of the shit that I would need for Classic. And also, what I'm probably going to do is just construct my own rule set, because there really are no, like, New Game Plus categories for Classic. It's kind of interesting, and I'm a little bit surprised, probably because, like, it wasn't really doable as much in TBC and Vanilla. Like, in TBC and Vanilla, you kind of know that you're in for the long grind anyway, and there's not a lot of stuff that you can really send over to a low-level character. Sure, you can mail over gear and whatnot, but it's not the same, right? Wrath is when you finally get heirlooms. And with heirlooms, introduce new possibilities, right? It makes it easier to gear alts. You get 10% bonus experience for all of the major heirlooms, with the exception of, like, weapons don't give it, trinkets don't give it. Dread Pirate Ring only gives 5%. And on that note, I got Dread Pirate Ring on Classic, which is something that I wasn't even willing to attempt speedruns until I at least got Dread Pirate Ring. I finally fucking got it a few weeks ago. I'll probably use the footage somewhere, because it was actually really fucking cool. It was down to the wire. I posted the screenshot of after I won in my Discord, and you can see there's this druid, and it's actually a level 43 druid who was trying to do the Kalawak Fishing Derby. And he was, like, literally 3 seconds behind me. And he's, like, in Say Chat, like, are you fucking kidding me? Fuck you, man. I can't believe it. And the sad part is, I felt so bad for him. Because he was only level 40 or whatever, he didn't have... I think he technically was high enough level to get fast riding, but he didn't have it learned yet. So he was, like, behind me by, like, 3 seconds, and because he had, like, 60% mount speed instead of my 100%, he actually lost because of the mount speed. And, man, it was fucking tragic for him, but good for me, because I got the Dread Pirate Ring, and, oh man, that is, like, huge. But on that note, right, like, that's the thing about Classic speedruns that I've noticed, is they're all new game. Right? They're all these, like, super long, and that's why I don't get it. It's like, they're just casual playthroughs. Like, 90% of the Classic speedruns, quote unquote, that I can find is it's like somebody putting the word speedrun on their casual leveling thing, and some of them are, like, multiple days long. Like, I get it, even the world record, the only somewhat efficient run I could find that was still new game was, like, 65 hours. That is... from what I can tell, 65 hours or so is the world record for Classic Wrath of the Lich King 1 to 80, which is still multiple days, right? But some of them would literally be like 5 days long, which is so much farther behind that, and they'd call it a speed run. It's like, look, at a certain point, when can you start calling something, when can you stop calling something a speed run because it's not fast? Like, I get it if Classic leveling is so slow that 65 hours... Did I say 65 days before? I don't know. 65 hours is the current world record from what I can tell, because there's also not, like, a huge speedrunning scene for Wrath. Obviously, like, speedrunning was a little bit more popular from what I can tell in, like, OG Vanilla, but I can't really find, like, any leveling speedruns that are, like, outside of, like, 1 or 2 for Wrath. I don't know why. I even looked, like, OG Wrath. I can't really find many recorded ones from back in the day. Obviously, when you start getting, like, really far back, it's difficult. Like, there's, apparently the world record speedrun for, like, Classic WoW, for, like, Vanilla, doesn't even have, like, a recorded video component. It was just somebody who, like, hit 60 and put their, like, /played, and that's just, like, accepted as the world record because it was back in 2005 or whatever. And it's like, man, shit was wild back then. I guess you can't really fake /played. And obviously, we now have, we now, like, in the modern day, know that /played is not a good indicator of how long it took you, because you can just abuse rested experience, or especially now, right? There are a lot of, like, daily quests you can abuse where it takes, like, 2 minutes to complete and gives, like, a large chunk of experience. But, it's a daily quest, right? And it's out in the middle of nowhere. So for practical purposes, it's not worth doing. But there are people who have sent me their /played at level 70, and they did it in, like, 45 minutes or something like that. I don't know exactly how long. I remember one that was, like, an hour and 30 or something like that. And they spent like 45 days just logging in, doing a set of daily quests, and then logging out. It's like, man, but it took you 45 days. That's not an hour 30. You know, you had to spend 45 days doing that. I mean, at a certain point, the mental toll of having to remember to log in every single day for 40 days, that's got to be more taxing than, you know, just sitting down and grinding it out over a few additional hours. I don't know. I do not understand the appeal to that. Outside of the fact that it's neat, right? It looks cool. But I've always been more of like I think that speedruns are done in one sitting. I guess obviously there's segmented speedruns, but I think there's a difference between I'm going to put the controller down for like a day and then come back and continue the run as is. Or obviously, you know, segmented speedruns where you splice together the best bits. But from like a World of Warcraft leveling perspective, and the way that a lot of the classic runs are done, which makes sense, is they split it up into their play sessions, right? So sometimes they may get like a bit of rested experience, but from what I can tell, there's like speedruns.com, which isn't used heavily, seems to have some restrictions on how much rested experience you're allowed to get in between like recording sessions. And it's like well established that you're doing it over the course of multiple sessions, which is like fine, right? But I don't know. At a certain point, like I'm sure that by the metrics that's like some of these people are using to record their speedruns, I think right now I could do a casual leveling run in Classic and I could probably get, I don't know, world third, world fifth, or something like that. Because I've seen so many just horrifically optimized runs, which is fine because they're not actually doing a speed run. They're doing casual leveling. And if you're doing casual leveling, like go for it, do whatever the fuck you want. But it's just weird to call it a speed run where it's like, yeah, if I'm not speed running, I will AFK in Silvermoon City for an hour, or I will stop and, you know, throw stuff off the auction house and just chill and do whatever. But if I'm in a speed run, I'm not doing that. I'm making sure that every second counts because that's the point. So I don't know. It's weird, right? So, you know, I've always said that I never want to do something on a technicality, right? Like I don't want to say, oh, I have, like the world third in classic leveling because I just did like a casual leveling speedrun over the course of a week that is moderately fast and efficient. And I just did zones in a good order and didn't take random breaks in the middle of the speedrun, right? Like, sure. The entire point of if I were to do a classic speedrun, it would be like an actual speedrun. It would be like this, where I prepare stuff ahead of time and mail over heirlooms and blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. You get the picture. So I've been looking into all of that, how to get that set up, because there really isn't there really isn't any good guides out there for it. Like one thing that I found out that I looked up like heirloom guides for Wrath Classic, and something that I really was surprised by when I actually dug into it is a lot of people say that you can't enchant your shoulders in Wrath Classic, your heirloom shoulders, because the only enchant that, you know, actually works is the level 71. So if you want to put a level 70 enchant on your shoulders, that's the best you can get. Why is it not working? Why are the NPCs not loading in? Is it working now? Oh, there we go. I don't know why it took a second. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of people basically saying don't bother enchanting your heirloom shoulders or just throw a level 70 enchant on there and it'll work from 70 to 80. I did not find a single guide talking about the fact that there's actually an enchant you can put on your heirloom shoulders that works from level 55. Not only that, it is almost as good as the enchant you get at level 70. You only lose like a small bit of critical strike rating. It has the exact same attack power bonus, and if you're using a caster one, exact same spell power bonus. You just get 14 less critical rating. So yeah, technically speaking, if you were to really min-max, you would want to have two sets of shoulders, one that has the level 70 enchant, but the other that has this level 60 enchant that kicks in early at level 55. And I've literally never found a single guide talking about this. But I looked into the WoW Classic database and I looked through like permanent or what is WoW had sorted by? It's like permanent enhancements for the shoulder slot, and I looked through every single one, and then I found there's if you play Classic and you want to do it yourself, it's like Zandalar something of might or spell power or whatever. And you have to be exalted with the Zandalari tribe from original Zul'Gurub, and then you have to buy I don't know if you buy it or you like interact with an NPC and give them like the items and it crafts it for you. But it's for melee at least a 30 attack power enchant that works from level 55, which is a whole 15 levels of an additional enchantment bonus more than I could find a single guide mentioning. It's like, it's the basic due diligence. If you're going to put out a guide for heirlooms, at least know all of the enchantments that exist in the game, right? Like, I don't know. And I looked into other stuff, like the one that everybody seems to at least get right is the +4 stats on chest is pretty universally considered to be the best enchant. I looked into it a lot. I tried to find an enchant that's better. That one seems to be correct. But I've also seen a lot of people saying that Crusader is the best enchant for a leveling weapon. But as we know, Elemental Force is the best enchant for retail leveling weapons. Now, I know some of you are ahead of me and are thinking, but Elemental Force is a Cataclysm enchant. You can't use that on weapons in Wrath Classic. Yes, but the same principle applies, right? Why is Elemental Force the best enchantment for retail WoW leveling? Is it some special enchant that doesn't exist in Wrath Classic? Well, all it does is it's a damage proc. Elemental Force, when you hit an enemy, you have a chance to proc damage. Does that exist in Wrath Classic? Yes, it does. There are many enchants just like Elemental Force that exist in Wrath Classic. Now, I don't know if maybe when Kata Classic comes out, maybe Elemental Force will once again be the best enchant and will be universally better than Crusader. I don't exactly know the history of Elemental Force and how its scaling has worked over the years. For instance, the main reason I'm wondering is some of the Wrath Classic or the Wrath of the Lich King specific enchants don't actually work at low levels. So you can only use stuff from vanilla WoW and below, because everything else requires a specific level. It's one of the reasons why people say shoulder enchants don't work, because back in this era of World of Warcraft, enchants on your heirlooms don't actually scale down. So you need to be at the required level to actually benefit from enchants on your heirlooms. So the reason why the shoulder enchant I mentioned is good is because it does require level 55 to benefit from, but that is the lowest level that you can start benefiting from an enchant on your shoulders, and it still gives a pretty significant bonus. And then the reason why everybody uses the +4 to your chest is a lot of higher level chest enchants require the item to be a specific item level. So it'll say like, can only be applied to items of item level of something or higher. And that is the best possible enchant that you can get, +4 all stats to your chest, that doesn't have an item level requirement, meaning it can be applied to level 1 chest pieces, which the Wrath Classic heirlooms always count as a level 1 item. That same restriction is not in place for the shoulder enchants, so they can be applied to anything. The only restriction they have is the character level needs to be a certain point before your character actually benefits from it. It'll be like in red otherwise. And the same thing is applied to weapon enchants. Weapon enchants tend to follow a similar pattern to the shoulder ones, where you can apply higher weapon enchants to your heirloom weapons, but they will be red for anyone that isn't a certain level. So if you are, I don't know, if you're like level 10, right, you won't be able to use a Wrath of the Lich King enchant. You can only use level 60 enchants or below, which is why a lot of people use Crusader, because one of the other nice things is, since Wrath enchants don't scale, it kind of works both ways, in your favor. So you don't get the constantly scaling stuff with your level, but it does mean that at level 1, you get the full benefit of Crusader. You get the full 100 strength, and it doesn't have a reduced impact. Now, 100 strength may seem really good, right? But it's, I don't know, it's misleading, right? Because, sure, having additional attack power at low level helps. But the benefit, like as we all know, like as anyone who knows how this stuff works can tell you, basically the difference between stats and damage procs is damage procs are a flat value. They will always do that exact amount of damage. It is predictable. You know exactly how much it'll do. So if a damage proc is tuned around, in the case of Classic, a level 60 mob, and you're using it against a level 1 mob, there are many cases where that damage proc on its own will just do the entire health pool of that level 1 mob. Because the low bound of the damage it can deal is the entire mob's health pool. So in that case, that's just obviously the best enchant. The one that can instantly kill mobs, right? And the other problem with 100 strength is 100 strength is good when you start getting, obviously for casters it's a little bit different, right? As a caster you're not taking 100 strength, but like looking at it from a perspective of, oh, is that leather? That is leather. Nice. Just got another BOE upgrade. Throw that on. That's cloth. Okay. So obviously when you are at like a higher level, let's say level 40 or so, there's Gravis Slipknot is over there, so he's up. I'm at least scanning for chests because they can appear, but I don't like to check for chests here because there's like a million stealth mobs and it's just a pain in the ass to navigate just for a chance at finding one of them. Usually, I don't go out of my way for chests if there's not a quest nearby and I can't see it. Fuck. I did not mean to click Flying Serpent Kick there. Yeah, let me scan real quick. And you can see one of the nice things already here of the changes is I have not had to go back at all to learn fast riding, which is really, really nice. I'm also not going to have to go back for the super fast flying. And normally what I would have to do is a lot of times I kind of plan my route around the Hearthstones because, oh, well, you already have to Hearth to go do or to go learn your riding. So it would be pointless to like Hearth, learn your riding, then immediately go back to Hillsbrad and continue there for a little bit. So a lot of times I will basically pivot and I'll go to WoD next and stuff like that and only come back to Hillsbrad later. But now you can do all of Hillsbrad in one sitting without having to go back because you don't need to return. And the only times when you actually need to go back to enable or to do something in like Orgrimmar Stormwind is 1, enable War Mode at level 20, and 2, to start Warlords of Draenor. And Alliance have, depending on your race, Alliance have an additional stop to head to Loch Modan. So if you can get a teleport there, so if you're Dark Iron Dwarf, you don't need to go back for that. If you are a mage, you don't need to go back for that. But everyone else will need to go back for the for the transportation to Loch Modan when you get to that level, whenever you're there. Oh shit! I did not mean to send my Stormearth and Fire clones away. And also, yeah, the nameplates not updating are now starting to be a problem because now I need to actually gauge which target I'm hitting to finish them off, and I can't. So that kind of sucks. Let me go Teachings of the Monastery, Invoke Swen, Drinking Horn Cover, Port Brew, Dampen Harm. Okay, this is Shift T. Yeah, this is roughly. I also shouldn't have killed those guys. Wasn't paying attention. I needed to use the mirror on them. Not the end of the world. As always, I get a damage proc when I don't want a damage proc. That one-shots it. Alright. The moment you cast the mirror... Fuck me. That was another really big damage proc. Which is, again, good in any other situation. Right. Don't proc. Around 35% health. And the problem now is if my Elemental Force procs when they're at 35% health, that's enough to just one-shot them from that point on. Alright. Don't kill, don't kill, don't kill, don't kill. Okay, we got the mirror off. What was I saying before? Yeah, so All I was really saying is this saves time, right? You don't need to make as many pit stops, which is pretty nice. Use the mirror there. I'm also going to need to adjust my. There we go. Seat still counts even though they're dead. I will need to change up my buff items that I'm using right after this, and there's actually significant changes at level 40. So I'll do that. Fuck. Yeah, I don't know why I used Rising Sun Kick. That was obviously going to one-shot. Just playing that. I'm going to use Spinning Crane Kick. Hopefully no proc. Nice. Oh, when do I want to... You know what? Something I'll test here. I haven't tested in a while what level the monk quests cap out at. I want to say the monk quests cap out before level 50, but I'm not actually sure. So this will be a good way to find out. If I'm ever going to test it, this is like the perfect testing run. I wait until the last second to do it. What's this? I think Alpha Tiger. Yeah, Alpha Tiger is the no-brainer pick here. Let's just go with that. All right, and I get fast riding. So this is perfect. Oh, it's so nice to just immediately have this. And now, because I'm already here. Oh, can't forget to set the bomb. That I should have done beforehand, but I forgot. Set this, and then that's cloth. And then I'm going to put stuff on high bars. So Bear Tartar. This is this. For elixirs, Flask of the Currents is the new one that I use. I also can start using Unbridled Fury, which I will put on Control 5. Are there any... There's a rare mob here. Sometimes there's a chest in this area. I will quickly scan the... I'm actually not sure if doing these is fast now. Because it was never worth doing these, because by the time that you, like, got back to Lockbow, you were... Or got... got back to, yeah, here we go, chest. Doing this stuff with ground riding is, like, really inefficient. Doing this with slow flying is really inefficient. But it's like, if you already have fast flying, and you're already literally right next to this section, where there's, like, a million potential chest spawns and rare mobs that normally I don't do in the route, suddenly taking a detour here is really not that bad. You don't need to do anything super fancy. You just need to scan. Just kind of look through chests. Any chests? Chests, no. There's one in the tower that can spawn over here, so I'm going to check that. I already got all that stuff. It's not there. So we're going to fight Scowl. Oh yeah, Hyper Augment Rune. I want to add that to my bars. I think that's it for now. It's all the new stuff. So right after I fight Scowl. Alright, just gonna get Bear Tartar to replace that. And Bear Tartar is a pretty big buff. We get the Augment Rune, and we're all set. And now we continue with the questing. I'm trying to think about how I want to actually handle this. Might be a chest in this area. Usually one or two. We got one in the ogre area, but there's usually like one spawn in... I don't really know how chest spawnings work exactly. Like, I don't know the logic behind it. But from what I've been able to tell over the years, it seems like chests have, like, regions where within this region, the chests have a respawn rate at any of the shared points. So there'll be, like, a chest respawn within Ruins of Alterac. But, like, the stuff that I'm not sure of is sometimes you find chests in Strombrad. Now, do the Ruins of Alterac chest spawn points share a spawn with Strombrad? Or are they separate? So can I find one in Strombrad and one in the Ogre area? That's the thing that I don't know. But something is like, I've never found two chests within Quran's Dagger at the same time. So there's like a chest that can spawn over by Jimmy the Bleeder. There's a chest that can spawn down there. There's chests that can spawn on that little hill, over on that little hill, on the other there. And then it's, once again, does Quran's Dagger and Chillwind Point and what's the other one? Sofara's Naze is the next little hill. Are all of those part of the same region? So if I find a chest here behind Jimmy the Bleeder, does that mean that I'm ineligible to find a chest over at Sofara's Naze? That kind of thing. I don't know. That's like, I think honestly you would probably need like a Blizzard developer or a shit ton of extensive like camping and data collection to really get a definitive answer for that. So I can only basically give like feely crafty information based on my experience over the years. But it's one of the reasons why if I find a chest somewhere, so if I'm in like that place with the Kirin Tor guys in Silverpine Forest, and I happen to find a chest in like that little ruined house, I don't check any of the other spawn locations. Because I've tried before and I've literally never found, specifically referring to like this place, Ambermill in Silverpine Forest, I have never found two chests in Ambermill. I found a million different potential spawn points for chests, but I've never found two of those spawn points containing a chest within the same run. It's always either I enable war mode and I come back on a different phase and then there's another chest up. Obviously that's different, right? Or there's only one. So I am relatively confident in my theory, at the very least, that there are like chest regions and that chest spawns. Oh, there we go. There's a chest, sturdy treasure chest. I was wondering if this was going to be the one that was up. Let's see. I want to make sure that I loot this. I know after you complete a certain quest, this area becomes phased, and you can no longer actually loot this chest. That is a thing that can happen. So I want to make sure I get it before I become phased out. And I've poisoned all of them. I think it's after you turn in that quest, this area gets phased out. I still need to drop the pocket nuke over here. But yeah, so I think if my theory is correct, the main thing that you would need to do to basically calculate chest spawns is you need to somehow figure out what each chest spawn region is. So, like, we can pretty safely say that Ambermill is its own self-contained region in Silverpine, but then, like, is Dalaran Crater a separate region from these areas? Probably. So then it would mean that the different regions in this zone would be like South Shore. Then it would be Azurlode Mine. I've definitely found chests here. Where else? Dalaran Crater, and then maybe all of these hills are their own little area. Ruins of Alterac, right? I'm sure you could, with enough data collection and time spent, I'm sure that's something people could figure out. I just don't know for sure. But it's an interesting thing to figure out. And like, in theory, if I were to have like detailed knowledge of every single chest, I like calling them chest regions. I think that's a nice way to describe it. So if I had detailed knowledge of every single chest region and every single potential spawn point, that would be a pretty nice benefit for speedruns. My dad messaged me basically saying, get some sleep because I have a haircut appointment in a few hours, and he wants to make sure that, you know, in between my speedrun and the haircut appointment, I'm like taking a nap or something so I don't like, I don't know, pass out right before the appointment or something. Either way. Probably means that I won't be able to level in Classic, because I think my dad is probably right. Better that I sleep now than like keep pushing, because then I really need to be careful. I almost died. These things explode and one-shot you after this debuff falls off. Yeah, there we go. That would have one-shot me. I'm surprisingly close to the end of the run, actually. Because, like, as I said before, the final 10 levels are the fastest 10 levels. They go by in a flash. And we haven't even done the WAD intro yet, mind you. So, WAD intro is really, really fast. I've said a million times it is the fastest set of quests in the game. I also really don't want to fight Yetimus right now. I would like to... one thing I'm going to try to do is, I've never really done this a lot before. I knew it was possible, but I've never really bothered with kiting Yetimus into the cave. I don't really know why I never did. It's like a lot of classes don't need to kite Yetimus into the cave, and I think the problem... I'm trying to remember the reason why I initially didn't do it, and I honestly am drawing a blank. It's, I think the first time I did it on a hunter, and hiding him, like, in the cave, you can't consistently position him with a hunter pet, because the hunter pet will shift around, and if the pet gets yeeted, Yetimus will, like, run around, and he gets all fucky, right? But normally, kiting Yetimus into this cave is just good. It just, makes it so you don't need to deal with the knockback, which, honestly, makes things a hell of a lot easier for what is arguably one of the most difficult parts of my leveling route. So, yeah, I'll probably update the guide to mention that at some point. And it definitely makes it easier to pass the Yeta litmus test for classes that don't have ways to negate the knockback, but can do fancy stuff. I just popped Swen. Ugh, why did I do that? I'm going to need all my cooldowns available for when I fight Yetimus, so this means I need to wait 2 minutes to finish off Yetimus. So I will have to... I mean, I can do the other stuff in this cave first, right? I can do this. On the note of classic speedrunning, though, I will say, while I've gotten the Dread Pirate Ring, and I've begun to do a lot of preparation on, like, setting up gear sets, looking into what consumables and stuff I would need. I'm probably also going to develop my own rule set. I think I said that earlier, maybe I didn't. But I've said before, like, even with, like, retail speedruns, I'm kind of operating off my own rule set. It's basically like a modified version of the speedrun.com rule set with some things that I think are obvious, and that pretty much everyone I know who, like, watches my channel, or speedrunners, or people who enjoy doing speedruns in the past who I've talked to, kind of agrees upon stuff to keep it fair, like no Garrosh heirlooms, whatchamacallit, no Garrosh heirlooms, no running with a group, right? So no having people follow along, and intentional help, right? What I thought is interesting, right, is the classic speedrun rules actually have a rule against intentional help. So they'll say no grouping or intentional help, and yet for whatever reason, it is not a specified rule in the retail speedruns. And you actually do have speedruns done by people with multiple max levels following them along and one-shotting everything for them, which defeats the entire purpose, right? But because it's not in the rules, it's not enforced, even though it's obviously cheating by literally anyone's definition of a solo speedrun. I don't know. There's a lot of things with the way speedrun.com moderates it. It's not the website, right? Like, speedrun.com, it's like Reddit, in that the quality of the speedrun, like, community is entirely dependent on, like, a game by game basis. So if a game has, like, really good moderators, it may be really good on speedrun.com. It may have, like, a really good, well-moderated scene, and it may be, like, legit. But nobody takes speedrun.com seriously for World of Warcraft speedrunning anymore, because the moderators just don't give a shit. So, yeah. Kind of hard to do that. I should have picked up Touch of Karma before I fought Yetimus, but doesn't really matter. Because I'm a Windwalker monk, and yeah, Windwalker monks are kind of overpowered, especially for leveling. And I literally could have taken it, so yeah, it's whatever. Yeah, go with that. This on H. Oh, I was about to say, like, what are these quests? I don't remember missing any, and it's the Midsummer stuff. Right. Now, once again, Midsummer, I would never recommend going out of your way for Midsummer stuff, but for instance, if you're leveling casually right now, there's absolutely nothing stopping you from just walking over to that, talking to an NPC to honor the flame of Terran Mill or whatever, and you get like a free quest. It's like a free, in this case, 10,000 experience, whatever I just got from that quest, because it scales to your level. So, free experience for doing literally nothing. That's all you need to do. So, I always recommend that people do seasonal stuff if they're leveling casually. The only reason I don't do it in my speedruns is because I want to make sure that, for the most part, like I said, with some exceptions like the 50% buff, which people specifically wanted me to do, I generally like to keep it like free of limited time stuff. That way, if you watch this in the future, and I guess this particular run is admittedly a little bit tainted because of the 50% buff. So if someone's watching this in the future, they won't be able to replicate it. But my actual speedruns, I will use all the normal stuff. The only time I kind of change that is I use the anniversary buff for my Horde 10 to 60. But I actually did put that up to a poll, and by a decent margin, people wanted to see the anniversary buff. And I had already done like a shit ton of non-anniversary buff runs at that point. So, you know. And hey, months later, I did another run on Alliance 10 to 70, right? And I didn't use the anniversary buff because it didn't exist anymore. So, I don't know. Personally, I would say if I got, like I said, the same viewers on everything, it didn't matter. I would not be using the any limited time buffs. Right now, I would not be using the 50% buff. I wouldn't have used the anniversary buff, etc., etc. But I have data to prove that people like watching faster runs, even if it is gameplay wise virtually the same. So I do that because it makes it a more enjoyable viewing experience for other people. So hey, yeah, that's what matters in the end. Okay. All that. I need to kill. Let's see, 12 more. Okay, there's 2 over there. Well, another thing, unrelated to classic speedrunning, and all the preparation I've been doing, I've started stockpiling, or well, a mix of stockpiling and just doing research on all of the items that are being removed in Cataclysm Classic, especially the BOEs, the ones that I could potentially in the future flip for money. And I should say, if you are interested in that as well, I have spent a lot of time not only documenting it, but also discussing some of my more interesting findings when looking into that stuff on my Discord server in the classic stuff channel. So if you are interested in, all of the rare transmogs that are going away in Cataclysm and you want to start looking into that in Wrath Classic, I spent a lot of time looking into that stuff. I have a whole document that I've been recording stuff on. And it's also interesting how a lot of that works, because it's not like a universal, Blizzard just removed all the stuff. It's kind of like a weird case by case basis where some stuff got removed, but some stuff stayed, and some stuff stayed but had a reduced drop rate. And yeah, it's a bit interesting. And it's the kind of thing that I think would make for a cool video, but that's probably something that I'm going to put out closer to whenever they release or announce Counter Classic. So I'm doing a lot of research into it now just because it's something that I'm personally really curious about. And I want to start collecting that stuff ahead of time. Any chests in here? Nope. But yeah, who knows? I may actually make a video on that later on. Like maybe maybe I'll have that video like ready to go, and then whenever the next BlizzCon arrives and they officially confirm Cata Classic, which is probably what they'll do. And for the record, if you think Blizzard isn't going to make Cata Classic, you're fucking high. Like, every time I talk about Cata Classic, there's at least a few people who are like, Blizzard's not going to do Cataclysm Classic. Cat is what killed the game. And it's like, you must be off your fucking rocker if you think they're not going to do it. Like, just from a easy money perspective, like, obviously it's a money printer. Like, they literally put in 0 effort and get a bunch of people to resub. They get like a bunch of digital deluxe bundles, whatever. They are going to literally just print money by re-releasing Cata Classic. So it's a no-brainer for them as a result of that. But also, a lot of people who like really hate Cata forget that they are not the only person in existence. And there are people like me who, yes, I am actually really excited for Cataclysm Classic, and I am not the only one. So yeah, it's not like they'd be releasing it just to print money. There are actual human beings, myself included, who really want to play Cataclysm Classic. In fact, I would argue I am more excited to play Cataclysm Classic than I have been for any Classic release, except maybe Original Classic. Obviously, the novelty of that was cool, but I really can't wait to play Cata Classic. I think it's going to be sick. I cannot wait. And yeah, I don't know. That might be weird for some people, but hey, it is what it is. I think it's going to be fun. And I've kind of already said this before, but I'm going to make a lot of videos when Cataclysm Classic comes out, because hell, that falls squarely into the category of I don't even care if it performs well. I'm just really excited for it. I'm going to play the shit out of Cata Classic. And it's the reason that I'm already doing research on like the removed items and stuff, because I'm just curious about it. I think it's cool. And I want to start collecting that stuff. So what I can say for sure is that if Cata Classic does get announced, which, like, let's be real, 90% odds that it does, one video that you can expect is multiple detailed overviews of all of the items, because there are a lot. I probably won't go into every single one because there's like literally hundreds, but I'll go into some of the notable ones. And then what I'll probably do is, because I literally already have it complete, I will share a document, a detailed Google Doc, or actually I'll probably have it as a page on my website that's like, polished and stuff like that. But I will have like a detailed list of every single item so that you can farm it yourself and stuff like that. But I'll probably put out like multiple videos, one probably for like the BOEs, like world drops off rares, because there's a lot of them. Like rares like this guy, Rule 1 Stone or whatever. There's a few in Arathi Highlands, actually. Guys that either got moved or removed in Cataclysm that dropped like a unique item. So a lot of them will have like a special BOE green that no other mob in the game drops, and it got removed in Cataclysm. So there's a bunch of those. That's probably like its own video. And then of course there's the classic ones from dungeons like Oldemon. Everybody knows, most people know about like the Oldemon ones. That's like a classic. But there's a lot of other ones too. Like, if I asked you what the 2 rarest like drops were from dungeons in Classic, like the 2 rarest possible of those BOE items that you could get from all of them, a lot of people may respond with like Papal Fez or Pendulum of Doom, some of the really iconic ones, which admittedly are ultra rare and are among some of the rarest. But the 2 rarest items that I've been able to find in actuality are, there is Hotshot Pilot's Gloves is the 2nd rarest. And Hotshot Pilot's Gloves is kind of like, it's a similar situation to the Pendulum of Doom and all of the Oldemon rare items, in that it was a world drop BOE from mobs within Nomergon back in Original Classic. And when the levels got reshuffled, so like, I don't know exactly where Oldemon got changed, but I think Oldemon got increased in level by a little bit. Nomergon got increased in level by a little bit. Oldemon got decreased in level by a little bit. And because the levels got changed, something to do with like the levels in the mobs influences the items they drop. And if the level is too far away from the level of the item, then it has a lower chance to actually drop. So a lot of these already really rare items from the dungeons became like 1 in 12,000 drop chance things. And they only drop off like 3 specific mobs in the entirety of Ultimon, because those mobs have like a level that is within 3 of the item's level, and that is the only way that it even has a chance to drop. And those ones, specifically those like 7 mobs within Ultimon, have a 1 in 12,000 or something chance to drop the item. And every other mob in Ultimon has a 0% chance to drop the item. So they're like ultra rare items that are worth like millions of gold right now in retail WoW. But even though they were rare in Classic, they were still much easier to farm. But what's interesting is Hotshot Pilot's Gloves, from what I can find, is the second rarest. It is worth a fucking small fortune right now in retail, but it's actually easier to get right now on Classic than the Ultimon items are to get on Classic right now. The Ultimon items are still pretty hard to get on Classic. Whereas Hotshot Pilot's Gloves, despite arguably being even rarer in retail, are easier to farm, but are still worth like 2,000 gold on the AH or something like that. That one I think is rare because from what I've been able to find, it only drops, it has like the same 1 in 12,000 drop chance, but only off a single enemy within the entirety of the retail version of Ultimon, or Nomergon. I keep getting myself confused. Enlightenment, it works. It increases my rested experience at level 48. So I think at level 50, this stops giving you rested XP, and it switches to like the mastery bonus or whatever. So this may actually be the perfect time to do the monk quests, which would be kind of insane. This is like actually kind of ridiculously efficient. The funny thing is, I actually think I am still maybe not behind my world record, but I am not too far behind my world record. Man, I went really fucking fast on that that one that I did in the pre-patch, huh? The fact that I was even keeping up, because I'm like 40 minutes behind. I think I will probably end up beating my world record. I don't think I'll get sub 3 hours. I think sub 3 hours is in theory possible, right? Like, because I definitely haven't played perfectly this run. So sub 3 hours with the 50% buff is maybe possible. But, and like, I was also thinking, I would have saved time had I done dungeons, levels 10 to 20 or 10 to 25-ish, doing Burning Crusade dungeons as outlined in my video from a few months ago would probably be faster. But at the same time, you got to think of it like this. That might have been a time save, but that would also require me to play on live servers. And if I'm playing on live servers, I wouldn't have found, like, what did I find so far? Like 5 chests and a shit ton of rare mobs. So it's hard to say whether all of the really good rare mob, or in this case, perfect rare mob RNG I've gotten as a result of it being the PTR is enough to outweigh the loss of being able to do dungeons. It's definitely close. There's definitely an argument to be made that if I were to get... oh shit, I need to bow to Master Castain. If I were to get like really good rare mob RNG on a live server, comparable to this run, and I were to also get dungeon spamming, and I were to just like play really well and get like gear sets and stuff like that, like I do for an actual world record, there's an argument to be made that this could be sub 3. I think it's possible. Not 100% sure. I'm also not getting a ton of rested experience off this. I don't really know if this is worth it. Oh my god. The quests give a lot, though. Yeah, this is... Is this worth... I don't... I'm going to actually make an executive decision, and I'm going to say this is probably not worth it. Now, in a vacuum, the monk thing is worth it because, like, you know, it's efficient quests. But you have to think about it like this. We are trying to compare here the monk quests and WoD intro and, like, Gorgrond, the best bits of Gorgrond. Because I haven't even done Gorgrond. I'm probably not even going to reach Gorgrond at this rate. I might actually just hit 60 off the WoD intro itself and nothing else. And definitely, I think, because I still have so many extremely efficient things to do, I don't even know if it's worth it to do the monk quests. I think what I did there was efficient, right? Because there I got like the first quest and then I doubled up. So I did the daily quest version and I did the second step in the chain, both at the same time. So I think that is probably efficient because each one of those quests is really good and it gives you rested XP. So doing like 2 birds, 1 stone. But if I'm going to go through the long RP for each and every one of them, Ah, shit. I forgot to talk to the Thrallmar mage. Honestly, it really doesn't matter that much because I have fast flying. It's still a minor time loss. This is what, a 30-second time loss? Which isn't a huge deal because I have fast flying. That would be like a minute time loss. It's probably only like actually a 30 second. But yeah, it would be like a minute or a minute and a half if I didn't have fast flying, which would be like maybe a little bit significant. But we're still sitting pretty here. I'm also almost at level 50. I think the consumes for 50 to 60 though don't kick in until 51. Because I don't know. Shadowland shit is weird. Right? I think it's not till, yeah, level 51 is when this stuff comes online. Alright. Paralysis. I want to make sure I don't accidentally click that mob and break the paralysis. Unfortunately, because I did get in combat with that, I'm going to lose a little bit of time here. Oh, I dropped combat. I can mount up. I'm going to try to dodge that Warsong Commander. I'm going to get... Yeah, fuck. Man, I'm getting really bad luck with the patrols here. The Warsong Commanders are just really playing defense. It's not a huge deal. It's just a minor time loss, because that means you can't mount up. But Monk has like enough on-foot mobility that I don't really think it matters too heavily. I can also use I can use Battle Scarred Augment Rune at level 50. Oh, and yeah, that stuff can't be usable above level 50. This stuff requires level 49. Okay, so I refreshed that right now. I almost forgot. I almost hit level 50 before I refreshed my 10% potion, which would have been bad. But I remembered. Good thing. And then at level 50, I can swap to the next Augment Rune. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I initially wasn't planning on playing this like a speedrun, but I'm definitely like getting into like a speedrun mindset, because like, this is really fucking fast. It's, I honestly wasn't sure if I would actually be able to beat my speedrun time, because I figured even with the 50% buff, if I wasn't like really going fast and really optimizing it, then, you know, it is, I think it goes to show how much the actual like skill and play within the run itself does make an impact on the time. I'm getting an additional 30% experience compared to what I had in my world record run, and I'm only like moderately, like very slightly ahead of my world record run despite having 30% additional experience. That's just like how focused and how fixated I was during my world record run to make sure that I had like the best performance possible. Like that stuff does actually, you know, matter. And I don't even think I need to put that on my bars, because we shouldn't be here for another hour. I shouldn't need to refresh those buffs, right? So, the nameplates seem to be working now. I don't know why. And now they're working. Yeah, so I don't need to do anything else until level 51. I have 30 minutes left on Bear Tartar, which should hopefully be enough. Okay. 30 minutes left on Bear Tartar. I mean, what this definitely means, though, is... I mean, if I want to, if I really want to set up a super fancy speedrun, and actually like buckle down and really try to get it done, I absolutely could. If I'm able to get like a time this good, just kind of like casually, fucking around and only using whatever consumables I had left over, then I absolutely could get like a really, really, really fast time. I'm fixated. And honestly, because the monk teleport really doesn't have as much utility now because you don't need to go back for whatchamacallit, you don't need to go back for like riding training. So that doesn't save as much time as it did before. And like the monk quests, they're good, but as we've already established, the fact that I actually like abandoned them, it actually means it's not as much of an impact with this 50% buff. You just already have so much experience. So honestly, those are points in favor of Guardian Druid. Because Guardian Druid just has so much of a time save over the span of the entire run. It kills things about as fast. It has better pulling potential. Like I've been doing, like as Windwalker Monk, I've been doing like large-ish pulls, but you can see here I've been doing like a bunch of medium-sized pulls. Where I do like a bunch of mobs, I blow them up within like my Fist of Fury and stuff, and then I do another pull. And that's mostly just because the amount of time it would take me to round up all of the different mobs with like Crackling Jade Lightning, it's just inefficient, right? Whereas Guardian Druid, what they can do is they can just gonna attack him. Guardian Druid could just tab Moonfire a bunch of stuff. If you've watched my old Guardian Druid world records back in Shadowlands, when I actually did all my runs with Guardian, then you probably know what I'm talking about. You just run through a gigantic area, you tab Moonfire on every single mob, and now actually with Dragonflight, you have Twin Moonfire, which makes that even easier to do. You just round up a gigantic pack of mobs, you're unkillable, and then you just thrash it down while Galactic Guardian procs finish it off. Now, the reason why I stopped doing Guardian Druid runs is one, because with the addition of the monk quests, which I was always like never entirely sure how good the monk quests were. And I think that Windwalker Monk may have been a more viable contender in Shadowlands than I gave it credit for. But I still think that Guardian Druid A had more value back in the Shadowlands version of the route because it was just really insane for leveling. It did way more damage than Windwalker Monk. Windwalker Monk still did a lot of damage while leveling, but the main issue is it took way too long for a lot of its stuff to get online. I wouldn't say way too long. It took a little bit too long. Windwalker was still, like, I would say, either second or third best leveling specs, but compared to Guardian Druid, which, like, from level 15 had, like, almost all of its tools, Windwalker, you didn't get, like, all of your super duper combo potential at, like, a low level, whereas now you get, like, so much insane Fist of Fury synergy super early on in your tree. You get Storm, Earth, and Fire and Strike of the Windlord at such a low level. You just have ridiculous damage as Windwalker from early on. So damage-wise, Guardian and Windwalker are very comparable right now. And let me just consumable up before I forget. Do Shadow Core Oil. All right, and then I can't skip this cutscene. Yeah, but they have comparable damage. Windwalker is squishier. That is its main downside. With Windwalker, you can't just do gigantic pulls, and on some of the harder fights, like the General Margrave or whatever in Silverpine Forest, you might have noticed I needed to kite a lot. And that's just because Windwalker can't face tank him. Guardian Druid can. And Guardian Druid also is slightly more efficient at large pulls because it can just do that without any fear of taking like too much damage. It's just virtually unkillable. So it has some slight advantages. Now, the main reason why Windwalker Monk has been like kind of faster for speedruns since Dragonflight came out is one, at Dragonflight launch, Guardian Druid, I wouldn't say it was bad, but it took a significant hit. Its talent tree was dog shit. And that has changed a lot. Its talent tree is much better now. In some ways, it's there are certain ways in which they've actually nerfed it since Dragonflight launch even further, but they've given it enough tools to counterbalance that I actually think it's like close to where it was in Shadowlands, though maybe it was slightly more overpowered in Shadowlands, just because you don't get access to Galactic Guardian as early, and Galactic Guardian is just fucking broken, right? It's just actually insane. So that's something that you just no longer have until much later. But Guardian Druid still does ridiculous damage. It still has insane survivability, and it's a Druid, right? Druid in general just has ridiculous mobility, some of the best in the game, along with Monk. So they both have that going for them. Let me just finish this off. There we go. And the damage loss definitely hurt. But one of the other things is the fact that monks basically one, the Volpera, one of the big things was racials, right? Racials and the teleport. The monk teleport helped, but also the Volpera racial for Horde and the Volpera racial for Horde and the Dark Iron Dwarf racial for Alliance. Both of those saved such a significant amount of time, and by significant amount of time, I mean like we're talking 5-10 minutes over the course of the speedrun, right? Probably closer to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is not a significant amount of time in like a casual leveling perspective, but when you're talking like world record attempts, like let's try to set up the fastest possible speedrun, yeah, 10 minutes is actually pretty significant. As you can see here, 10 minutes may end up being the difference between this being a sub 3 hour or not being a sub 3 hour. It's a lot, right? So you do need to take that into consideration. And the only allied race that can be druids is Kultiran for Alliance, and whatchamacallit, High Mountain Tauren for Horde. And they don't really have great racials. They're not bad racials, they're fine. Like, if for endgame rating, actually, they both have solid racials, not like amazing, but solid. But for speed leveling, they're both whatever in terms of racials. None of them really bring anything special to the table, so to speak. I used all my consumables, right? Yeah. I'm going to save any stuff that I have for the mini boss at the end of this little questing hub, all drums and pot bats. So I'm not going to use it on like Ungra or something. Just quickly Fist of Fury this down. Alright. So... What's I saying? So because of that, because your race, your words, because Windwalker monks and Guardian druids were already so close as is, the fact that one of them could be either Dark Iron Dwarf or Volpera, depending on faction, and the other couldn't, basically meant Windwalker monks were just favored because of their racial options. Because one of them could pick a 10-minute time save as a racial, and the other one did not have access to it. But I would say in a vacuum, Guardian Druid's passive benefits, or Druid in general's passive benefits of Flight Form, which is just a massive benefit. Like, the amount of time that Flight Form and Travel Form save over the course of a run is just so colossal. It is so useful. It is even more useful in WoD, which is another reason why back in Shadowlands, the difference was even more significant in favor of Guardian Druid. But now that WoD has kind of been like taken out of the route largely, it's less of an importance, but it is still very good. You still save a lot of time. Man, I really need to find an opportunity to spend these talent points. But I don't need to, right? I just keep killing everything before it even matters. Like, look at that. Just, what do I need talents for when I could just do that? Oh my god, it's actually insane. I don't know, man. I keep thinking I should stop. I'm going to stop and spend my talents just because it's irking me that I haven't. But I'm going to do it really quick. Yeah, sure, we'll go with that. You, Fatal Touch. All right. There we go. I think that was reasonably efficient. I don't know if I picked the exact order that I would have done if I had more time to think about it, but I definitely got good talents. I just want to make sure I'm not like inting myself and missing out on anything. Main thing is I wanted Fatal Flying Guillotine. I didn't realize I was 1 point away from that, so maybe I should have waited at least one more level. But I can just immediately snag Fatal Flying Guillotine the moment I level here, and that'll be good. But yeah, so one of the reasons that I think Guardian Druid is actually going to end up being faster than Windwalker Monk is because, as previously mentioned, Windwalker Monk gets a time save because of their racial pick. However, that is no longer the case, because the reason that that racial pick was a time save is, as mentioned multiple times during this run, the Dark Iron thing allowed you to skip to Lockwood. It also saved time, like letting you skip the Dollar on Hearthstone, so that is a time save gone. And on the Horde side, it was purely just because Volpera Camp made the trip back to learn riding slightly more efficient. Now, Volpera is still good, right? Because what Volpera does now is it means when you go back to learn War Mode, it is about a minute or two faster, which is still nice, right? Like, the advantage of Volpera is, remember when I hit level 20 in the middle of Gilneas? And I had to wait until after Gilneas to go turn War Mode on. Now, I said before that it wasn't worth going in and doing it like because of the travel time and because of the rare mobs and stuff like that. Now, if it was just because of the rare mobs, it would be worth it to do it, right? Like, the rare mobs are nice, but if you get 10% bonus experience, it's mostly the travel time. The rare mobs are just another reason why, for non-Volpera, it's even more efficient. A lot of times what I'll do if I'm playing Volpera is I will go ahead and I will scan for some of those rare mobs ahead of time while I'm doing the quest in the previous area. And then if I know that I'm going to hit level 20, like in Gilneas, and then I will already have killed them in that area, and it'll be worth the very short detour. And then I can use Volpera Camp to enable War Mode while I'm in Gilneas, because I can basically set a portable Hearthstone in the middle of Gilneas when there's normally no Hearthstone. I can head back, turn on War Mode, and the other nice thing is you can set your regular Hearthstone directly to Orgrimmar. So once again, you don't need to use Dollar on Hearth, and it also saves like about a minute of having to like run to the portal and go to Orgrimmar and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more efficient that way. And in the end, Volpera would save you like 2 minutes, right? But this is like 2 minutes compared to 10 minutes, because now you're only doing this once during the run rather than, what would it be, 3-4 times during the run? So it is much, much less of a time save now. And Dark Iron Dwarf is a bit interesting because obviously it has the same effect as Volpera in that it lets you save time when riding, which is no longer really a factor. And I would actually say Dark Iron Dwarf on that side of things is less important. What the fuck? How did I get... I've never seen this before. How did I get like a million bloodthirsty axe beaks attacking me? I don't even know where these mobs came from. That was fast. I got it. I literally got it off the first guy. Okay. So, you know all those speedruns where I kill like 20 fucking Blackrock machinists and none of them drop the fucking plans, and then I just, during this run, I kill one. And where are these... Where's this RNG when I'm going for a fucking world record, man? Come on. Off the first fucking kill. Alright. Let's keep going then. I actually think I can beat my time at this rate. For reference, it's actually close. I don't know. But my time to beat is 3 hours 23 minutes. I think is my world record. It's 3 hours 20 something. But at the rate I'm going, at this fucking pace, it may be doable. I have 13 minutes. 13 minutes to get 6 levels. Maybe doable. I'm gonna pull a bunch of mobs into the hut over there. Because I have to kill the guys inside the hut anyways. So... Come on. Alright, let me grab this little keg. Yeah, so all that to say, the thing I'm slowly getting around to saying is, I found a way to eliminate the main Dark Iron Dwarf time save, which is the travel to Loch Modan. And it can actually be done by druids now. It is slightly, it's kind of the same thing with Volpera, right? Where the Dark Iron Dwarf method is still slightly faster, this time for kind of a similar reason, in that the way that druids can do it takes about like a minute longer than the Dark Iron Dwarf method. But druids can get to Loch Modan a minute slower than Dark Iron Dwarves, which is still... I think I should be using Gunshoes here, right? Because Gunshoes are off cooldown by the time I finish the RP in this section. I don't know, 5 minutes, or 5 levels in, yeah. I actually don't think I beat my previous world record here, which is crazy. Because, like, admittedly, I was never, like I haven't said at the start, this is not a world record attempt. This is purely a testing run. But, I mean, when you see that you're close, you go for it, right? And I didn't expect to get this close. But I still think it's crazy that even now I am trying, right? Like I would say the latter half of the run, when I noticed that I was actually making really good pace, I'm like, maybe I can beat it? Fucking hell. My Volpera run was so fucking clean. I didn't even realize. God damn. Now I'm trying to think if I can actually change... I mean, obviously, like, playing Volpera, once again, would have still saved time here. Cutting out some of the mistakes I made definitely would have saved time. Getting the gear sets... Like, it's one of those things where the gear sets don't really save a ton of time, but if we're talking in the matter of minutes, it definitely could make a difference. But now what I'm wondering is, like, with the 50% buff, do I shave off even more? Off Catazones? Do I just go to WAD early? Because, like, Gorgrond is fast, but parts of Gorgrond are fast. But then it's like, I would say if you're going to cut out something, maybe I cut out Silverpine? I don't know. I don't really want to overthink it. Like, if this was a long-term change, right, then I would be spending a lot of time thinking the routing. The reality is, all of these routing changes would only be for the 50% XP buff. So they would be relevant for 2 weeks, and then they wouldn't matter. So it's like, I'm not going to sit here and like overthink exactly how I want to save time by changing up the routing, because long term it's not a huge concern. I'm more concerned with optimizing the travel back and forth to like switch between stuff, and I honestly think this was pretty efficient. I think it the way I did it in this run, I don't think I would change anything in terms of how I did the Chromie Time, War Mode enable, War Mode off. Yeah, you set your Hearthstone to Sepulcher, or wherever is closest, which will probably be Sepulcher for everybody. And then you Dalhearth, yeah. I think outside of the existing stuff, like obviously Mage and all the regular ones can do it faster, but... yeah. I'll have to do it for Alliance too. I should note, I haven't really decided. I may do an Alliance speedrun for the Shadow Priest. I actually haven't really decided what I'm going to do it on. Actually, yeah. You know what? I've decided. I'm just going to do Void Elf, right? Executive decision right now, locking it in. I'm doing Void Elf Shadow Priest. Just because, like, I should probably do my next run on Alliance anyway, just because I'm sure people will ask about that. So it's like probably the best option regardless. Um, but also, what is more thematically appealing than a Void Elf Shadow Priest? Like, that is just the perfect race class combo. If I want to do a allied race 10 to 60 speedrun on anything as a Shadow Priest, it's gonna be a Void Elf. So actually, yeah, that works out perfectly. But once again, I will be putting out, not after this video, but on Friday after I upload the Void Elf Shadow Priest speedrun, I will be posting a poll to decide the stream speedrun. So one thing is I will not be streaming any 60 to 70 runs. I will only be doing 10 to 60. In fact, on stream, I will probably do 10 to 61 just to showcase that. Actually, I may even do... Oh shit, I need to follow them anyways, right? I may even do 10 to 61 for the Void Elf run, regardless. Because I don't want to do it here, because the entire point is to get like a comparable time to my previous Windwalker Monk world record, to like set a benchmark, right? So I don't want to do it here because I want to keep things accurate. Did I get any items that I can use? I feel like I should have gotten at least like one pair of gloves or something. I guess not. Weird. Yeah. So I'll stop this one at 60. But I will I'll do the Shadow Priest one up to 61. I'll probably put still 10 to 60 in the title and thumbnail and stuff like that, just because, like I said, I don't want to confuse people. I don't want people to be like, why is the speedrun going up to 61? But within that actual run, I will probably go up to 60. And I should note that, in case it isn't obvious, you should always go up to 61 in Chromie Time. You should never switch to Dragonflight early. I think you can actually switch to Dragonflight as early as level 58, and you shouldn't. It's a simple matter of efficiency, right? Dragonflight is not efficient. A lot of the modern expansion zones tend to not really be terribly efficient. Dragonflight, when it eventually gets added to Chromie Time, I don't know exactly how fast or slow it'll be. It's hard to like compare them one to one, but what I can tell you is Dragonflight is not faster than Gorgrond. It's not faster than the WAD intro, than Loch Modan, than Silverpine or Hillsbrad. Those zones are still faster. They are ridiculously fast. So I think even when Dragonflight gets added to Chromie Time, it's probably still not going to replace it at all. We'll have to see. But definitely in the current day, right? It's not faster just because of scaling. Because the scaling in Dragonflight is way more aggressive than the scaling in Chromie Time zones. And one of the main reasons why they made this change in the first place is because Dragonflight crafting gear is not actually available until level 61. There's like this weird one level gap, kind of like what they did in Shadowlands for whatever reason. We saw that earlier with the flask that I used. So stuff in Dragonflight at level 60 is actually brutally hard if you're just exiting Chromie Time. It's one of the reasons why, in my current route, I actually recommend doing your profession leveling at the start, whereas a lot of people will say, oh, do your profession leveling like at level 69 to maximize the experience you get. And it's a very minimal difference, mind you. You get slightly more experience, but it's like you get slightly more experience relative to your level. It is comparable, right? Like the experience is exactly the same. The main reason why people say to do it like 69, I just realized, haha, funny number, is because doing quests at 69, in theory, and this is what a lot of people would think, right? It would make logical sense that doing the highest level is the hardest. Because if you get experience that is proportional to your level, right? Well, obviously, you're going to want to do it at the highest level possible, because that's going to be the most difficult questing time, and that's the time that you want to just skip by doing the easy crafting stuff. But the irony of that is that it actually isn't the easiest thing. As I've just stated, right? The okay, there we go. We got that. Yeah. So the hardest stuff, the hardest level in Dragonflight is actually 60 to 61, specifically because of the way that the crafting gear works, or the crafted gear. Oh yeah, that always takes like a second. So it's like a little bit of a weird logic there, right? But now the fact that Chromie Time goes up to 61 is actually really, really, really massive. Because one, it lets you stay in Chromie Time for an additional level, and that means you get one more level of really efficient questing. Because, let me first, it's a toy now, so toy box, Garrison, fuck, I'm blind. I did not use it yet. That is why. Yeah, it's because I don't actually have it learned because I only just copied over my account data. Drudge boat salvage. Also want to head down in here. Yeah, so it is now faster to stay in Chromie Time for one additional level, which that actually is insanely good. It seems like such a minor bonus, right? Like one level. That does a few different things. That is ridiculously strong. One, it skips that weird slush level, meaning that you can immediately equip your Dragonflight crafted gear the moment you hit level 61 and enter Dragonflight content, which is really good. But what's a little bit more important than that is because you now no longer have to play around that slush level, it means that now, as you may expect, you can do the crafting stuff at level 69. I think you'll probably do it at 69. I don't know exactly where the experience lines up. I'll figure out the exact amount that makes it so like, oh, if you start crafting now, you will get to, you'll hit level 70. So I'll figure that out and I will put it in my guide, right? That's one of the things I'll need to test. But that is a bonus, right? That does make things faster. What it also means is that you won't need to go to Valdrakken immediately. All you'll need to do is get your Hearthstone set to Valdrakken, and then you can immediately start questing, which does basically it kind of makes the travel time a little bit easier because like there's less back and forth. If you're teleporting to Valdrakken and then ending there, then any travel time required to get from Valdrakken to somewhere else is now taken out of the equation. Right? That's a little bit of a minor thing that it's only like 1 minute worth of travel time that you're saving there, so not super important. Whatchamacallit? Is this quest worth it? I think there's too much RP to make this quest worth it. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough call. I'm level 58. I already missed the timer here. I think maybe because I am so close, there's actually an argument to be made that it would have been faster to finish the garrison quests and then do this quest chain in Frostfire over here, because that's a reasonably fast quest chain, just because that would get me to level 60. Specifically for the 50% buff, just because that literally would get me there. But long term, I think if I wasn't like a handful of quests away from hitting 60, abandoning there and going to Gorgrond is probably better, because those quests are not the fastest. It's so hard to say. There's so many things to consider. All that to say, yeah, Dragonflight leveling, that's really good, right? So the fact that that gets changed. But one of the biggest changes by far is, and this is something I'll have to test heavily, is the dungeon quest changes. So a lot of my routing for Dragonflight stuff was finding ways to integrate the mob spawn. If I abandon this quest, did I DC? What the hell? What the fuck is going on? I may have DC'd? Yeah, I DC'd. What the hell? Okay. That was a really, really bad lag spike. I don't really know what just happened there. Yeah, what the fuck just happened there? Very, very, very strange. Either way, I was kind of worried there for a second. Lost like a minute of time, but it's not the end of the world. Let's talk to you. And so we can do all this. Blanking on what I was just literally just saying. Oh yeah, the dungeon quests in Dragonflight. A lot of my routing, like, I don't really think you'll do Waking Shores at all, because Waking Shores is so inefficient. The only reason that you did Waking Shores before is, one, you just needed the experience, right? Like, there weren't really enough ways to get experience without doing Waking Shores. So it was kind of like the lesser of two evils. But one of the main reasons why Waking Shores was good is because integrating dungeons into your leveling experience in Dragonflight is actually solid. The Dragonflight dungeons have decent quests, and they're also not too inefficient and not like too slow. I did the same thing in Shadowlands, right? In Shadowlands, I kind of did a few of the dungeons with the dungeon quests while I leveled up. And in Dragonflight, same thing holds true in terms of like what's actually fast. The thing is, two of the dungeon quests that you can get are actually tied behind. Technically, Neltharis no longer isn't because they have implemented an Obsidian Citadel skip or whatever. But it technically is locked behind the questline Neltharis and Ruby Life Pools. So one of the main reasons I did Waking Shores in the first place was because of that. There's also like parts of Azure Span that aren't really that fast. Like once you start getting to like the later sections of Azure Span, it ends up being really, really, really slow. But I would still do some of it anyway because it got you a dungeon quest. Like I would get all the way up to the Breckenide Hollow quest, and then I would stop doing the quests. That zone. See, the funny thing about that though is I actually probably would route that back in now that I could drop Waking Shores. But it was like I technically didn't love doing that because it wasn't really super efficient. But at the end of the day, if I had to pick doing that quest line towards the end of Azure Span versus doing the Waking Shores quest line, that one is way, 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 way better. So I actually probably will include that in the final route. But one of the other really big benefits is a lot of the quests for dungeons you would just not really get as part of like the speed leveling route. You wouldn't really get Knockhood Offensive. In fact, actually, I wonder what they're going to do for Knockhood. Because Knockhood has like 3 quests associated with it. So if you get all 3 of those quests automatically, you probably won't though, because I think some of them are at the end of the quest chains, which maybe would make doing those side quest chains more efficient. Because now you get the main campaign one in addition to it. I don't know. But now you get Halls of Infusion for free. Halls of Infusion was already pretty free. Oldemon you always got for free. But now you get Ruby Life Pools for free. You get Neltharis for free. I don't know about Algathar Academy. I'll have to test that. Algathar Academy is a level 70 quest, and it's like locked behind a little chain, so I've never done it while leveling. Maybe you get that? I really don't know. But that would be pretty huge if you did. What do I even want to do here? Miscreant Mire? I guess I just want to do bonus objectives. Right, that's literally all I want to do, because I'm basically a hair away. So doing like one-shot sources of experience is definitely my best option right now. What the fuck? Storm Earth and Fire is so fucking buggy, man. Oh my goodness. I know Babylonius is always like complaining about Windwalker bugs, and You know, I always think he's overreacting until I do another Windwalker speedrun, and I'm like, no, he is spot on. This spec is fucking broken sometimes. Was actually, I might have accidentally pulled that if I wasn't careful. Well, technically I wasn't careful, I just got lucky. I really don't want to pull the big guy either. I also want to go over here and get this treasure. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to do... Oh, it didn't count my Fatal Flame... Oh. Wait, I never put a point into Fatal Flame Guillotine. I'm wondering why I did not get the AoE Touch of Death, and it's because I haven't spent a talent point since the WoD intro. Yeah, that'll do it. That will definitely do it. Is this... I think we're one egg short. No, I have enough. And, oh, I'm so close. This is so close. But yeah, I think I already talked a lot about the Dragonflight routing. All that's left to say, really, is that I will... Laughing Skull's taken. Can I do this on a mount? I can do this on a mount. I'm just going to turn in this one quest, and then we'll be done. But yeah, I'll be doing testing runs. The one problem with 60 to 70, or in this case 61 to 70, is there is still a memory leak in Dragonflight content. It is specific to Dragonflight. I don't know what causes it. And it's like, we're not talking like the expansion, right? Because you've noticed I haven't had any memory leaks, or at least I sure hope I haven't. I'm going to be really pissed if I upload this and somebody is like, oh, there actually was a memory leak at some point. Because it doesn't always only happen in Dragonflight content. Where is the last Laughing Skull guy? Where are they? Oh, I got them all. Oh my god, I'm fucking stupid. This was for the 7. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Here we go. Oh, so Chromie still says the whole, you need to return to the present, whatever, but it doesn't actually teleport you. So yeah, you can still stay here for one more level. And as you can see, it doesn't automatically switch off Chromie Time. Sometimes there were weird bugs when I was testing my fresh account where it would randomly switch off, or not my fresh account, when I was testing some of my like PTR runs, it would randomly switch off Chromie Time. I don't know why. But it didn't do it this time. But yeah, so the note that I will end on, once again, stream this coming Saturday, July 1st at 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. EST, not right before midnight. It's around noon, so 11 a.m. And I will put the poll up for you to decide what the class and spec is after I do the Shadow Priest run on Friday. So, look forward to that as well, I hope. And I will not be doing any live streamed 60 to 70 runs because of the memory leak, because that's still going on. It still happens very frequently, and I have no way to control it. I've already accepted at this point there is no way to fix it. There's ways to fix it when it happens, right? Like, when the memory leak starts to happen, I can, like, restart the game, and that fixes it, but it will still lag the stream out. So there is absolutely nothing I can do unless Blizzard fixes the issue on their end to solve that problem. And it happens to other people, right? So one thing I really don't want to see is more armchair like technical solvers telling me, have you tried XYZ, or assuring me that I am in fact crazy and that it is in fact a problem with my computer. No, it's not. I've gotten a lot of really annoying comments like that whenever I bring it up. And trust me when I say that I've looked into every possible solution. It is an issue specifically with Dragonflight. There is some memory leak present in the Dragonflight zones because consistently Valdrakken, Zarla Caverns, a few other places, specifically within Dragonflight, it will cause memory leaks. And yeah, I figured out how to stop it once it started. So like, it no longer impacts my gameplay. Like, I can do speed runs and testing runs without it happening because I can just force close the game, restart it really quick, and I lose like 30 seconds. But 30 seconds of the stream lagging horribly and my voice getting cut off, it still makes for a terrible, terrible viewing experience. So it's the type of thing that I will be doing multiple testing runs in videos. And you will see videos like this for 60 to 70 where I'll be doing all that testing stuff, but you will not be seeing it in a stream. Just because I can't really live stream it without shit happening. I wish I could, but I've just accepted the fact that a lot of my live streams at the start of Dragonflight got completely ruined by the memory leak issue, and back then I didn't know what was causing it, and it made it an absolutely miserable experience for me to stream, and it's the reason I stopped streaming for a while, specifically because of those issues. So it's just one of those things I'm not willing to do. The conditions for me returning to streaming is no 60 to 70 runs until Blizzard fixes the memory leak. So I'll do 10 to 60 runs, I'll do literally anything else, but if it's in Dragonflight content, it's a no-go. And like I said, I'll stream a lot of classic stuff. I don't know when I'll do that, no set time, but once I'm done with all of my 10.1.5 testing, I will probably do a lot of classic leveling streams, just because I feel like that's a fun way to kill two birds with one stone. But no exact details on that yet, we'll see. Anyways, hope you enjoyed watching. I am surprised with how well this run went. Like I said, I wasn't intending to do a speed run, but this is technically my second fastest run. Obviously, it does have the 50% buff, but the thing that I think I'm the most impressed about myself retroactively is the fact that even with 50% more experience, I still didn't beat my world record from 6 months ago. A little over 6 months ago at this point. That is fucking wild. That it just goes to show how insane of a run that one was. Fucking crazy. It's close though. So, whew. But I did technically beat my Dark Iron Dwarf run, but I have like what, 40% additional experience compared to that. So, you know. But yeah, anyways, I will end it here. Thank you for watching. Keep an eye out for the Shadow Priest run on Friday, and make sure to tune into the stream on Saturday. I as a final note, I will probably also be doing one on Sunday, but I will not set that in stone yet in case I have plans come up. So probably stream on Sunday as well, but not sure. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you.